was sitting on the corner, something.
I think so. We'll go with that.
Possibly.
Did we already start?
Yeah.
No,
Everybody.
Okay.
Everybody hearing themselves fine. Everything coming through clear.
Yeah.
All right.
Actually, yeah.
I like how we have these random ass like come-ins and fade outs on the episodes. I was listening to one and you just completely came in the middle of a conversation. Like the audience will never know what.
That's probably why I did it.
Do you edit?
As little as possible. I was actually listening to an interview with Bill Burr. I don't remember. Oh, I know what it was. Hot Ones. Where they're eating spicy wings.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and he was talking about the fact that Burr's been doing this podcast since 2007, 2008, something like that. Yeah. Like he predates, Marin and Rogan and all these motherfuckers. He's like, yeah, they just blew right by me. And he was like, and he was asking, Evans was asking him a question about like, what do you think the long form, like, do you think that's more suited to comedians, these long form conversations? And he goes, oh no, just lazy. Want to do as little editing as possible. You don't want to edit that shit.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's introduce this thing here and we'll get going. 3, 2, 1. Hey, folks, welcome to Bouncing Brains. I'm Sean Hatfield.
And I'm Freddy G.
Joining us on the podcast today, the hilarious and multi-talented educator of men, Bobby Garza.
Hi.
That was awesome. Hi.
No, but, I've been listening to podcasts for over 10 years now. And,
damn, that's a long fucking time.
yeah. Well, what fucking year is it? Well, probably more like 2010, 2011. I don't know. Yeah. Actually, I don't. Maybe even. Well, I just know that you don't fucking talk until they say your name. All right. So,
since you brought that up, do you remember the first podcast ever that you listened to? Ever?
Well, the one that made the biggest impact was when. I remember when Carlos Mencia was getting the flack for, stealing material and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I remember seeing when
Mark
Joe...
Maron?
Yeah, with Joe Rogan and had that whole thing at the Comedy Store. And I remember seeing the YouTube video and just after that, I was like, well, how did that turn out? Or what was the fallout? Or like, what was what happened afterwards? And so I remember going in the internet and this must have been... I don't know, because I've actually gone back to see what episode it was of Marin's podcast, but basically it just happened to kind of recently. So I want to say that was the one that actually made the biggest impact because I heard him talking to Carlos Mencia and...
So it was, just to clarify for the listeners and watchers, it was Mark Maron.
Right, but what happened was, WTF, but what happened was that I was not aware of Mark Maron so much. I remember after getting into the podcast and stuff like, oh, okay, I've seen him on Conan and stuff, but I never really... he wasn't really like on my radar. But then after listening to the podcast, I was just like, oh man, I wanted to know like what Carlos had to say. And like I know the guy, what Carlos, right? Use his first name. I wanted to know what Carlos Mencia, how he was going to justify.
Let's cut the formality.
Right.
What Ned's opinion was on the subject.
And I want to see what he had to say to defend himself. But after listening to Marion's interview style and his personality and the way he kind of went about the interview, I was just like, who is this guy? And getting really curious. And then, going back and listening to all the past episodes, it was back when they were all free still, or maybe it was still, the podcast had been on for a while already, but not too long. And then, just like, dude, this guy is pretty awesome. Went back, caught all his back stuff, and I was like, dude, this guy is awesome. And then the little things like him liking the blues and the Rolling Stones, and I was like, sometimes like, dude, this is just too perfect. Come on, cut the shit, all right? Like, I was like, why hadn't I been aware of him and the podcast like beforehand? But then after that, I was hooked, and then I started listening to a lot of other podcasts, and the majority of them were all comedy based, at the very beginning. And it's cool seeing these podcasts grow, and those guys like kind of establish themselves as like kind of, I don't know if I'd say pioneers, but just because you always go back, well, there was this guys and there was this guy, but kind of like establish like podcast empires in a way.
Well, I think it's very much they were riding the wave of acceptance behind it. I think a great example would be like, say, Chappelle's show. Mm-hmm. There had been people who had done, personality-based sketch shows before, where it was somebody behind it that was the main focus. I mean, not necessarily. Well, yeah, actually, one that like every time I bring it up, I get like confused looks. But like John Leguizamo used to have one on Fox back in I want to say 94, 95, maybe.
Probably didn't last that long then.
No, it lasted like one season, right? And it was, John Leguizamo.
Wait, and this was a podcast?
No, this was. I'm saying like
a sketch show.
A sketch show.
Yeah. I think.
No, sketches have been around for.
You're not following me. That's what I'm saying, man. Sketch shows had been around, man. But
that was the medium for a comic to kind of.
Yeah, even something like, say, the Carol Burnett show was much more of an ensemble thing, whereas Chappelle's show was driven primarily by Dave Chappelle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like since then, you've had like a lot more. Nick Kroll, Key and Peele, fucking shit. I know there's been 1,000 of them since then. That just. But that idea of taking that, rather than taking the comic and giving them a sitcom, you take them, you give them something where they can do, these small.
And it's like their brand, their kind of brand of comedy. Even though they have a team of writers working with them, they still like, it's like promoting them.
Again, driven by that sole personality. I think with podcasts, you'd had people that have been doing podcasts essentially since the early 2000s, maybe even the late 90s. You could probably go back and find somebody that was doing, say, short little audio clips for, maybe Audible or something like that.
Yeah, just some asshole talking into like, a microphone and recording himself and just putting it out on the internet, not realizing that it was what it was going to become later on. Just the medium, Well,
there were even some big pushes. I bring up Audible because I want to say they were actually doing a series of programs where they were like getting comics and commentators and these personalities to do these short shows and make them available through their platform. And they put some money into it and they ran them for a couple of years, but it wasn't catching on. Well, let me ask you this, Bobby. Do you recall the device you were using when you first?
Oh, it was a home computer. It was a home computer. Yeah. I don't think I even might have had a smartphone at that point. So yeah, I mean, I had a phone, a cell phone, but I don't remember. Yeah, I didn't have a smartphone at that point. I remember because my first like real smartphone was when I had just started dating this one girl, and that was back in 2012. And she had like I forget what it was. I don't know if it was Samsung or something, right? And I was like, oh, can you like do all this stuff on it or whatever? Like, because I was totally ignorant and yeah, it was like the first smartphone. I actually got the same one that she had. Because I really didn't care for them. I didn't want a cell phone when they first came out. I don't want anybody to know where I was or be able to track me down or get a hold of me. I wanted a fucking excuse and a reason for people not to get a hold of me. It's like, I don't have a phone, sorry. And I liked it like that. And now it's completely changed. I read this one author, Charles Stross, and he writes some really interesting science fiction, but part of what he's writing is speculative fiction in the realm of pretty much cybersecurity. And he'd started some series of books and done like the first two of them, and it was all about, what would happen when we had ubiquitous surveillance and a totalitarian police state. And he was writing this in terms of, I think, Scotland. And like, it came time, like he finished the second one and it came time to write the third one. And he was like, all this stuff I've been talking about has already happened. Like, I think there may have been like one element that hadn't like we don't have like, they're not swabbing you for DNA at checkpoints, though they do at some.
just the idea that we are living in that kind of like Orwell would fucking shit his pants. Yeah. Well, you heard about this whole deal with the smart TVs where the manufacturers are just flat out saying that like, oh, they're pretty much charging what you pay for it at the store is what it costs them to make the TV, right? Because they're making all their money on the back end by allowing apps access to the information. You know, what are you watching? How long are you watching? Do you skip the commercials? All this shit, man. So it's a monitoring device at this point.
What I'm thinking that maybe what Orwell might actually lose his shit about is like, okay, so it's kind of like, okay, seeing things coming and evolving in a certain way. But I think the biggest surprise would be people's attitudes about it instead of, you know, being freaked out and, you know, trying to stop it or, you know, paranoid and anxious and kind of living in this state of fear that we're being monitored and watched and all that stuff. It's like people really don't fucking care.
Well, here's the weird thing.
I've actually thought of that, and I actually was having a conversation with somebody earlier this week, and I was telling them, like, because I was on that side. I was explaining to him that there was that every single way, like the microphones on the phones, on the computer, on the webcams and all of that, they can listen in on that, and then they can hear you talking or whatever. And this person, which I'm not gonna name because he's even like that, but he was very concerned with the fact that he could be heard and they could eavesdrop and all of that. And he was like, dude, how does it not concern you? And you don't think about your kid and you don't think about this and that and the other. And I told him, and just like I tell everybody else, look, dude, are they listening to us? I'm like 99, at this point, I'm 99% sure that they are. I'm really sure that they are.
All right. So,
but the reason I don't have a problem with it is because, like, what the fuck am I gonna do? Like,
exactly.
I'm not planning to blow up the country. I'm not planning on invading another country. I'm not planning a terrorist attack. Like, I'm not worried of anything. I mean, the worst that could happen is like if they could dig up way back, like to like the beginning of whenever I got a computer and find like old porn.
Right.
All right. Well, then this is what this dude is into.
And by old porn, he doesn't mean like you know, porn from like a long time ago. He's talking about featuring senior citizens and shit.
Exactly.
Old porn. But no, it's funny because Freddy's like, I'm not planning this, I'm not planning that, whatever. But basically, all you got to do is take what you just said and take out the word not. I mean, basically, you just framed yourself, dude.
Have y'all seen this video with, I'm trying to remember who the actress was, but some actress was giving a speech at some event, and with these deep fake algorithms, and I don't know how they work, but basically they can go through a video and replace like faces and shit. I mean, they could do more than that, but faces is the scary part because they basically took Steve Buscemi's face and put it over this young woman. So it's just Steve Buscemi in this low-cut dress, like delivering this it's
more like Steve Buscemi. Okay, stupid. But
it's like I don't remember who it was that was telling us. I think they told us on one of the episodes of the podcast that there was this guy that bought a Samsung microwave, I think it was. Shout out to Samsung. So, well, because what I'm about to fucking say, but and I've said it before, so I don't like I said, I don't care. I'm not planning on doing anything stupid. So this dude bought like this microwave or whatever, and he was setting it up. Right, it was one of those that goes over your stove, and you have to like install it and then connect
yeah,
you know what I'm saying. And it was those nice ones, like those big ones.
Yeah, you can't move it anywhere.
I believe this was the conversation with Joseph, and he was talking about the guy actually started dismantling the
I
microwave.
thought he broke it. accidentally.
Something happened, but he started taking apart the microwave, and it was freaking him out how many cameras and sensors were inside the thing.
And microphones inside. He said, I think, this is why I remember it. I think Joseph said that he found over 45 microphones and cameras inside.
Well, here's the one bit that, like,
that face that you just made, that's exactly.
Okay.
Well, I mean,
the microphones would scare me, man, but, like, without having any knowledge about the first-hand report, there is the possibility that what he was looking at were the infrared cameras, which are actually in there to make sure that your food's cooked. You know, because it's got like the self-censored.
Why would that?
You need an infrared camera. You don't. All right. Most modern microwaves have like you can just like put a setting on there, and it knows what's in there and how hot the thing has to be, like a baked potato or something like that.
Yeah.
And the way it does that is it's hitting it with an infrared camera so that when it heats up to the right temperature, it stops so it doesn't overcook your food.
Okay.
That's a possibility without knowing the first-hand account. But your cell phone has like it. There's the two microphones that it knows about. There's
that's the other thing that people don't know, and I'm guilty of it too. But it's because fucking people do not read the terms and agreements of like the shit, like every electronic shit that you buy. So like, for example, and I don't know, the only reason I know this is not because I read them myself, but when you buy your fucking Samsung phone, like this phone, it says in the terms of service that the microphones that you use to like talk on the phone or whatever, they're on 24/7, 365, and you can't turn them off. Now, given if your phone dies, they're not gonna stay on. So the thing is that so they're on. So literally, everything that you're saying, like it's literally being heard by the phone, right? Mm-hmm. So we go back to the previous conversation that we had, and I actually got this from one of the Rogan podcasts. That Rogan was saying that they were having a conversation about trucks, Chevy trucks, right? Mm-hmm. No, and that this Chevy truck has this, and that the 2018 now has this, and blah, 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 whatever. So then he left, and like 2 hours later, he was going through his phone, and he was on Google searching some shit, and he kept getting advertisements for fucking Chevy trucks and shit like that.
Well, okay, so the phone hears it, and
they register,
right? But it's not like a person who's listening, though. But also,
if they can do that, I'm pretty sure
for surveillance,
right?
But okay, but back to your other point.
Here's some of the scarier part, and don't get me wrong, I'm sure that has happened on more than a few occasions. Now, the problem is that because people are looking for that, it's not something that they could get away with like easily. Like if your TV was listening to you and all of a sudden it started playing like advertisements for the shit you were talking about, that would freak people out.
But let me
throw this at you, man. A lot of what that is that they're taking an aggregation of all the stuff that you've searched for, all the articles you've read, and the new AI, man, it's not AI. I'm trying to remember what it is, but it's not a full intelligence,
right?
But it's a conglomeration of all of these algorithms. They can basically do like pre-predictive predictions. I don't quite have the terms to use here at the moment,
but
man.
If whatever you're looking at, they can kind of predict the next thing that you might be into.
Well, yeah, I think it was Facebook that just came out and said like they know where you're going to be before you do. Sometimes, man, they're getting to that point where it's like, oh, it's Wednesday, 7:00. That motherfucker's going to stop and get a coffee.
Or, but basically, if we're posting that we're at the show on Wednesdays at El Rey, you could definitely know where I'm going to be at Wednesday night or Tuesday at El Rey.
I go back to my initial argument, which is if I'm not planning on fucking somebody over and doing some crazy shit, that I don't mind. But on the flip side of it, like my friend was worried, I do get it, because like let's say for whatever reason, and I can't really think of a solid one off the top of my head, but let's say that, okay, I thought of an example. Let's say that some genius figures out how to hack that system. I don't know because I'm not that smart, but somebody figures it out, right? Okay. And that somebody knows you, right? and that somebody doesn't like you, right? So then that's the only downside that I can see to that.
Well,
then this person now knows where the fuck you are at all times.
Let me rewind this back. I'm going to say hypothetically 15 years. Hypothetically, I used to know some people who hypothetically knew some people that worked for a hypothetical phone company. And if you hypothetically piss them off, they could hypothetically find your goddamn location.
Yeah.
We're not even talking about the shit that's available now, man. So,
No.
hypothetically.
Okay. Well, okay, but what I want to say is, sometimes the intricacies and the details to these very broad ideas that we're discussing are a lot more complex. So we're talking about the potential of people listening to us, right? So now I feel sorry for the bastard that's just there listening to my bullshit. Like, yeah, man, you want to hear me talk to my dogs when I'm by myself?
You gotta understand, these people earn over $250,000 a year.
Who are we talking about here?
Yeah.
Whoever the fuck is listening to.
Right, and their job is to listen straight to me. I mean, then again, pay me $250,000? Fuck no, I wouldn't do that job. I wouldn't want to. That sounds like a fucking boring job.
If you were bringing up Rogan's episode, Rogan's podcast. Have you heard the last episode with Mike Baker, the former CIA guy?
No. Oh, fuck, I should listen to it.
Oh, that guy's always fascing.
The last one I heard was the Jack Dorsey one.
I still have not sat down and listened to that. I was talking about that with Freddy the other day, man. Listening to Dorsey, just like on some level, you're like, is he purposefully not answering questions, or is his head just not?
And that's why Rogan said that he's gonna bring him for a second episode.
And then he brings Eddie Bravo in the room.
Oh fuck that,
forget it.
Let me be honest. Even if you don't like Bravo, there's at least got to be a few episodes where you're like, dude, I wish Eddie was sitting there going, "What about chemtrails?"
It's not that I don't like the dude. It's just the way he goes off, and I'm not even talking about tone or word choice, like the thought. I'm talking about the thought. The way his thoughts go off, like, dude, they make my head hurt. Because, like, how do you fucking... Especially when he starts talking about the flat earth. Oh, my God.
Well...
They could be Photoshopped, Joe. They could be...
Well, back to what we're talking about. Okay, so Freddy says that they're paying people $250,000 to monitor us. Okay, hold on. Let me say. I just want to get this out real quick. Okay, that's what I want to say. So people are getting paid like a lot of money to monitor.
Listen.
Now the amount of people that have a device in their pocket, right? We're talking about millions and millions of people, right? So now that means that every person who has a phone has one person assigned to them.
No.
So but that's what I'm saying. Like,
realistically, what would be happening if we're talking total fucking surveillance? What would be happening is your phone company would be logging, time, date, duration, which is already happening.
Right.
They have admitted the NSA collects time and duration of phone calls. They don't collect what's in the phone call, supposedly, but they do collect how long the phone call is, who you called, and how long.
Okay,
and
so let me tell you something.
What I'm saying is they might be keeping that shit
just like a file, like a log.
Yeah, so the last 30 days. If somebody comes in and goes, "Hey, we need to subpoena that shit," they might be able to give it to them. But realistically, nobody is listening unless you are a person of interest for one reason or another. Nobody's listening.
So exactly. So the other thing is that. Where was I going? Oh, so this was back in 90s, bro. Back in from 90 to 94. What I'm about to tell you was in 90 to 94. We're in 2019 now. Don't keep that time frame in your head. In 90 to 94, who was public enemy number one? Pablo. Okay, so they were after this fucker. This is not about, well, it is about Pablo, but it's not about going into detail about him. I'm just telling you what they used to be able to do in 90 to 94. They used to be able to like listen on phone calls, any phone calls in the country. They had people assigned to eavesdrop on phone calls that they wanted, and then what they would do, they would listen in, like they would listen in on that phone call for, I believe it was up to 2 minutes. I may be wrong on the times, but it was like up to 2 minutes or whatever. And then they look for keywords. They look for keywords like bomb, gun, suicide. They had over 1,000 keywords, right? That they registered. They had they had a whole register,
like a hit on these,
right?
Like...
Somebody physically did that. Like they had a team that did that. All right. So once they did that, they registered that. So and then when they were doing this, all of this was being recorded. These bits and pieces of the calls were being recorded. And they did this with the intention of busting Pablo. They got the idea from there. But what they don't really openly tell you is that once they figured out how to do that shit, they kept doing it for other reasons that they don't disclose, right? So now this is my main point. My main point is that now that they've built this registry of like all these keywords, now they have it. It's like having a fucking automated dictionary. So now they have it like on autopilot. So anytime an active phone line goes, and it doesn't matter who's on the fucking phone, like you'll be talking, and it's just an example. I don't know the intricacy of exactly how it works, but if you're on the phone and you're like, hey man, whatever, we went to the show, Sean.
I believe what you're referring to was called the Echelon program.
I'm not sure.
Wrong on that one.
But like let's say, and it's just an example. Hey Sean, we went to the show, man, and that shit was bomb. Now the context doesn't matter. What's recorded is the word. So now automatically, because you use that word, it's automatically recording you. Now it goes back to the same thing I was telling you. The amount of time that it records you to see what the conversation's about, then that conversation gets flagged. It gets sent somewhere else for further analysis. I bring this back full circle. This was in 90 to 94 that they were able to go ahead and do that. Could you imagine in 2019 what they could do now?
Well,
and does that answer your question? Originally?
No, because what I'm going to say is that it's going to take a significant amount of like manpower to still like somehow track this stuff and interpret it and do something with it. And
look at what we're doing now.
Yeah,
you, and I'm gonna put this in the simplest form. We record this, you see it on screen. Sean edits the shit out of it, as he just told us, and he puts it on YouTube, right? That stays on the YouTube server.
Right.
What that does is anybody that knows the access to the URL or whatever, how to find this episode or any episode of the channel, they go, they click, and they play. And that information is stored there.
Right.
My point goes back to what you said right now. Once you get into that per se algorithm, you don't need people behind the computer.
Okay, so
everything.
Freddy, I think what you're not taking into account, man, and what, all right, don't be wrong, there is so much that could be done. They could record all the phone calls. They could take all the text messages. They'd need some place to store them. But here's the problem, false positives. Because it would take almost as much man hours to find the say there were genuinely, well, there are, but say that, you know, for all of the actual bad actors out there who are being picked up by some system, monitoring system, there are just as many, or you want to have as few as possible people that are being picked up by the system that are not bad actors. You know what I mean? That's where the false positive comes in, where it's like, okay, yeah, we're getting all these, you know, hits for these people who we know are an issue, but we're also getting all of these hits for these people who are just, you know, somebody randomly said the one word we didn't, or one of the thousands of words we didn't want them to say, right? So it's more often than not, even with the program you were talking about, man, more often than not, it wasn't that they were going, oh shit, we got a hit on Freddy, we should check him out. It was that the person they were looking at was being suspected for some other reason, and then they had access to go in and find what was available through monitoring systems like that.
And that's fine. I don't disagree with that.
Well, I'm just saying it's retroactive. It's not so much that they're monitoring everything.
No, and that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm telling Bobby. That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying there's not a dedicated team.
Right. No, I understand. I understand this. But also, what I want to throw out there is to say basically, like, what I think my first point was, what I was also wanted to add is that the sheer amount of numbers of people. Think of all the phone conversations that are going on right now. Think of, I mean, we're, 3 comics in the Valley in McAllen, Texas, that, you guys have, it's awesome that you're doing the podcast and putting content out there. Now, I mean, considering how the medium has grown exponentially over time, basically, I mean, think of all the other aspiring comedians all over the country that are doing the exact same thing that we're doing. Think of all the phone calls that are taking place, like right now at this moment. Think of all the little, shithead little kids that are doing all the stuff. Okay, yeah, I agree with you, but what I'm saying is just like, just the sheer amount of numbers and everything like that. It's just, I mean, tracking it is one thing. The ability to track it is one thing, but I mean, other than that, it just it's just too.
I think what you're getting at is like filtering out the noise from the actual content.
And it seems like it's so dense, that would seem. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying I don't believe. I know we're putting out theories. All right, because
you're fucking saying you don't believe it.
It's a theory. It's a theory. No, because I'll respect like what you're saying, and in a way, like
So, but I'm curious. I'm curious because I do want to know this. In layman's terms, what is it really that you're not believing?
No. Let me tell you this. Let me tell you this. Okay, it's not so much that I don't believe you, because that's loaded. What I mean is that skepticism. I'm talking about skepticism.
Okay, but it's all it is, because we can't prove anything.
Right. So what I'm saying is, like, before I go full-heartedly into buying something, into believing something, I'm gonna address it with a fair amount of skepticism. Yeah. And it's not, in no point it means like not like negating what you're saying or not respecting you or the word believing, it's just that it's just sort of like the skeptic nature that I have before I allow myself to kind of like take something and run with it, because these things have an ability to really kind of fuck with your head and worm their way into your mind, and so you start seeing all these other things happening. And I'm not saying some of these things are not valid or that they're not. All I'm saying is that, I think, just to be skeptical of all things before you necessarily say down, like, I know this for a fact.
No,
I know that this is occurring.
Hold on, time out.
Hold on. But there's reasonable assumption of
hold on, because I do want to throw this out there, and for everybody watching and everybody listening as well. Everything that I just said to this point, none of it I know for a fact. And I'm not saying any of it is 100% factual. So we do go back to what you said earlier, that it's theoretically. So, and for the people watching and listening, like I said, none of this is factual. None of this I know for sure. And let's be honest, guys, I'm too stupid to even know. You know what I'm saying? If it's true or not.
That's always been one of my fears. If somebody did explain it, would I even be able to be
exactly.
What the fuck?
Even if you get the CIA chief in here right now, I don't know who the fuck it is at this point. They've changed so many. Even if you get that fucker in here and he would explain to me.
I think it's a woman.
Oh yeah, it's a chick. Okay. It's a chick.
It's I forgot her name.
Holy shit! I was about to call her a bitch. I'm sorry, and I just did. I'm sorry. I didn't.
I started looking around for like microphones.
Please don't tap my phone.
Oh, here it is. Here it is. Thanks a lot, Freddy.
No, but even if she were to come in here and be like, you know what, this is what it is, and this is how it is, my fucking brain would fucking scramble. It reminds me of that episode where that physicist was explaining to Joe the way the cosmos work, right?
Yeah.
And Joe,
I'm gonna look her up real quick just so we can get.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So Joe,
they can do their own fact check.
So Joe, it was like, dude, he said, I've been listening to you for the past 20 minutes, but if I understood 10% of what you said, it'd be too much. He was like, I know you just explained it. You're very smart, But I didn't even understand your explanation.
Yeah, her
cannot-
name's Gina Haspel, and she was just recently
Yeah.
nominated, and and I mean, all her information is here. Who knows, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
But
I forget what comic does that line, but they were talking about a British spy from like the early 20th century. It was something Riley, and it was like, if you're the most famous spy, you're a horrible spy.
right, that's
fucking funny, bro. That's fucking hilarious.
And so I guess
So I want to throw something else into the mix. We can go all night talking about this, and I don't mind. It's interesting, and I like to hear people's input, even if they don't fucking agree with me. Anyway, no, but there was this because I'm hooked on Netflix and shit because that's all I got right now. There was this documentary on Netflix. I don't know if y'all ever watched it. It was called America's Book of Secrets.
Okay.
Right? And they started with 10 episodes. And they went really in depth on like aliens, the alien theory, the Area 51. They went into big. Well, that's where I was getting at. There was an episode called Big Brother, which is basically, hey brother, they're watching. And every episode was an hour long. So this is my point. I watched all the episodes and all that. In that documentary was the first documentary where basically they really did peel back and leave every subject naked of like how everything was possible. Oh, they even had the theories of like how all these wars that the US started wasn't really like for war. It was for like their benefit and why it would be their benefit. So my point is that they released that one season. It was supposed to be a documentary of 4 seasons. And after the last episode, which was the Big Brother episode, like I said, they left Big Brother naked. I went to check again for the new season or whatever after like 2 months, and the whole documentary disappeared. So I went online.
I was going to ask you
to search it or whatever, and there was people leaving a shitload of comments, and they were bashing Netflix because they were saying that now Netflix is working with the CIA, and why did you take this shit down? And they don't want to be exposed.
Well, yeah, you see, and because of how broad of an audience that Netflix is reaching, I mean, that could feed into the idea that it now can be used as a tool for, oh
yeah, I've heard several theories on, Netflix being used as some sort of social programming, whatever, man. Same thing with, Twitter, and that's all right. I'm more of a proponent of the emergent concepts, like you were talking about. Some of the a lot of crime fighting in this country has eventually been turned into an apparatus for monitoring the population, like the RICO laws that they came up with in the 60s to bust the Italian mafia was eventually used. That's why everybody gets charged with conspiracy theories when they attempt to commit conspiracy or a conspiracy charge. That all comes out of this legal loophole that they basically implemented back in
organized
the 60s.
Crime.
Yeah, well, okay, so you've got that. Well, we just need you on a conspiracy. Well, if we get you saying the right thing, which eventually leads to the monitoring programs, which eventually leads yada, yada, and onward. And now the NSA logs all of our phone calls. So,
Now I wanted to go back and touch on that point that you said, because that's how I was going to cap it off. The whole, you're saying that they have a whole bunch of people listening to every phone call, and then the explanation that I told you that they were
algorithms and computer programs, stuff like that.
Yeah, well, and that they created that back in the 90s and 94. That tied into what Sean is saying right now when they try to bring the mob down in Vegas. They use the same technology, the same algorithm, the same everything, And there's a very famous story as into why that came to play, which is when his nickname was it Left Eye? Robstein. The mob that De Niro played in Casino.
Yeah.
Lefty. Not Left Eye, Lefty. Yeah.
Think about TLC.
Lefty. I forgot his freaking last name, man. But him, because of that whole time in those years that they scammed the casinos, basically, they also used that technology to eavesdrop on him. And might I say, and that's how I was gonna cap it off. That's how they were able to take down most of the mob in the 60s and 70s in Vegas.
And so tactics that were used to kind of find and expose criminals, right, is now going to be turned against us. And
but then again, Bobby, we go
once
back
you
to
have
the same
the toy,
thing,
you're not going to stop playing with it.
But we go back to the same thing, Bobby. I believe. I'm not going to go out on a foot and completely say 100% that that's true.
Right.
But again, like Sean was saying earlier, I think it's only for the people of interest. If you're not fucking blowing up federal buildings and whatnot.
Well, here's where it does get a little sketchy, man. When you
I said not, to make that clear. I said not.
Yeah, but they can manipulate audio, man.
Oh yeah, man, dude. Come on, we've got 30 plus hours. Probably closer to 60 hours of audio clips out there, man. They've got us saying a whole variety of words. They could stitch together a confession note. It's like Freddy was found suicided with 2 shots to the back of his head. Oh shit! I had a thought. It was right there on the tip of my tongue. Oh, when you get programs like the DEA was using the monitoring that they set up after 9/11, was using that to go after small to mid-range drug dealers, man. You know what I mean? Because if they could find it, if they could easily pick up, fucking Steve on the corner who's, maybe moving a couple of fucking pounds, and then find out who Steve's fucking connection is, you know what I mean? So the creep is where it becomes a problem. That's part of why I think the emergent, like not going whole hog and going, it's all a plan to get us in a fucking prison state. It's more that they just like I said, once you got the toy, you're going to play with it. And then, your buddy over here who, has nothing to do with national security, but hey, your toy looks really cool. Can I play with it?
Mm-hmm. I don't mean to be like, I don't play devil's advocate. Because there's some people that will automatically try to disagree or try to try to poke holes in something.
There's nothing wrong with playing devil's advocate.
Well, what I'm just saying, but I guess what I've always been a little hesitant to do, or just kind of like apply to my own approach to just various aspects of life is certitude. And so I kind of try to be just analyze all things before.
Well, that's where it gets a little sketchy, because we are at a point where even the stuff that for sure, you can go check the Freedom of Information documents and know for sure what it is that certain government programs are doing, what they're recording, how they're monitoring. Even that might scare the shit out of you, even if the whole you hear cops talk sometimes, and it's like, look, most people commit a couple of dozen misdemeanors a day and possibly a few felonies, you know what I mean? Just inadvertently, because of how convoluted our law is at this point. So you take that along with the fact that, all of this stuff is now monitored. You have the traffic cams. I mean, most major cities at this point have ubiquitous street monitoring for like most major intersections. And I think
cameras everywhere.
I think it was Chicago, man, where they were talking about, they've got like monitoring stations set up in certain neighborhoods where if a gunshot goes off or, there's something going on, they can, instantly that starts getting recorded and they can triangulate where it was and all that shit. But they were talking about when they first installed these things, man, all it did was, okay, the crime stopped happening here. It just moved over here, So,
and I mean, but really,
but the problem is that kind of gives them an incentive where they go, well, shit, if we just put cameras over here too, and that's, again, we get back to the creep. So it's a little scary.
And then it then it just grows and grows and grows. And I see what you mean. Now, also,
I think you were touching on it earlier, man, but at a certain point you just have to, and again, I'm assuming this is where you were going based on what you were saying, was at a certain point, you just have to go, okay, that's existence. Like you can't just always be focused on that shit.
Okay, there's that. And also, I mean, what was I going to say? Because somebody, I'm trying to keep track of everything. Oh yeah, this is what I wanted to say. I wanted to add to this. It's just basically like, I think there's an aspect of human nature that we're talking about the manipulation of powers that be and people that are in control of manipulating it and being able to turn it against, like, you know, the populace, right? And for nefarious reasons, right? And do the negative things. I think that that's where I think a lot of conspiracy theories or these things that we're talking about kind of like tend to really kind of propagate, because we're always like, oh, you know, they can do this, they can do this, they can do this. Now, I think there's an aspect of human nature that, I mean, everything that is around us and everything that we develop and everything that's evolved to this point, like we've allowed it to happen because we as people, we as human beings are evolving ourselves. You know, like the internet, of course, is, yeah, you can go and you know, fuck around on it. You can buy a shitload of stuff. You can use it for entertainment purposes, like all this stuff. But really, it just seems like we wanted this to happen from the very beginning. We just didn't have the means to create it, you know?
That's another scary part, is you always have the human mind is a crafty fucking machine, and if it sees an opportunity, and there are those people that put that shit together because they want to know everything. They must. They must.
So let's just say that, you know, everything that we talk about and this manipulation and this control, let's just say that it is true, but also then let's just say that people actually want it to happen. You know, like they wanted the internet to occur, like they wanted technology, like they wanted to be, you know, like, for example, you know, primitive man, or like, you know, let's go back a couple hundred years or whatever. Like, we couldn't communicate instantaneously, but we wanted to, you know. And so basically, what do? I mean, these things evolved, and now I can call you whenever, I can call you whenever, and we can be, or I could call someone fucking across the world. You know what I'm saying?
I get it. I get it, and I know where you're going with it, and that's fine. But I think where we fucked up, because progress is good. Mm-hmm. Progress can always be good.
Right.
But where we fucked up as human beings is greed. Greed got in the way. And not only greed as in monetary, but we go back to what Sean just said like 5 minutes ago. Greed as in, I want to know more. And then that greed of I want to know more became, I want to know more than you, and I want to know more than you, which is fine, because now, like, again, to a certain extent, because now you have a doctor and you have a lawyer, right? And the doctor specializes on some shit on your body, and the lawyer specializes on keeping you out of jail. So they help each other. But my main point to everything is that it came from greed. So now what happens, to fast forward in the fast lane, now you have greedy people that continued with that greed, and now a lot of things that they made, a lot of things that they brought to light, they're not used for what they initially were meant to be used.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
I see what you mean, but it's also like I see people and like everybody, like I see like still like the collective kind of like mindset and like these things that these moves that we make as a whole, right, as a group, without maybe even realizing it, and that there's like an evolution of something going on, and sometimes, you know, like we tend to maybe try to find like there's boogeymen, or there's, you know, these shadowy, you know, things that are kind of like,
was just talking about the bringing back Bigfoot. Yeah.
You know, but they're just like these organizations, or these, you know, these structures that are in play to, like, again, fuck with us and keep us under and in control and stuff, like, and I'm wondering, like, is that it? Or is there a point, you know, that we keep on moving towards, you know? And I was talking about, like, you know, of course, I mean, we're the technology that we have, and so like back to the point of being able to, call, instantaneously anybody around the world, right? If there's, if you have a smartphone, I have a smartphone, right? Whatever, we could definitely, get in contact. Now, I mean, who's to say how long it's going to be, but they're down the road, it'll just be like, I'm going to talk to Sean and be like just mentally, like having like, I know we're being recorded, right? But I was like, but what I'm doing is I'm trying to say like, oh, we're gonna have a conversation in our minds, or it's like, oh, I wonder what Freddy's thinking right now. And then I'm like, oh shit, Freddy, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, but
Freddy's a freak.
It's funny because I don't know if you already watched it, but Rogan has an episode on that. Rogan also believes that
that episode he did with Musk, man, Tesla's looking at doing a neural interface for computers, man. So you'd be able to put on some sort of little skull cap and interact. Now, what they eventually want to do is be able to have kind of the technology that would be required for like a telepathy type of thing, where it can feed information to your brain. So you don't need to have a monitor. You don't need to have, headphones. This thing is just putting it in your head.
Right.
That's when shit gets that's when stuff gets very scary.
Well, yeah, because the advancement of things like, for example, virtual reality, it's still kind of in this like infancy stage. But when we look at, for example, like black and white TVs versus what we have now, exactly. So I mean, those jumps.
I like the way that he's from the angle that you're.
Yeah, and so these jumps occur. And thank you, Freddie. I appreciate it. But
the trick is to keep the bastards out of the production while it's going on, because it's going to happen at this point unless we get bombed back to the Stone Age.
Definitely, so. And I tend to be more of an optimist.
I'm there with you.
And I like to believe in the goodness of people as opposed to the negative thing. And I don't know, like maybe I'm a pussy, or maybe I'm a hippy dippy fucking motherfucker or whatever. Like I don't know. I would just like to believe that before I automatically assume the worst in you, that I can
Well, that's because, and I'm not being sarcastic before I say this. I'm being.
And by you, I mean
honest.
my fellow man, not just
No, I got you.
Yeah.
No, but what I'm saying that is, and this I do mean about you personally, but that's just. I don't know how to say it, man, but like I said, I'm not being sarcastic. That's just still the decency in Bobby.
Oh, okay.
Like Bobby still has decency and trust that when we've had this conversation to where we can treat each other as human beings.
Right.
We can not forget, like, did I say that right? We can not forget that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who you are or what title you hold or what you know. We're still you're a human being,
right,
like you and me. But and that's cool. If 6 billion other motherfuckers thought like you, man, we would be in a better. And I feel you. I'm another one. I feel the same way. But I go back to what I was telling you earlier. Unfortunately, I feel, again, this is just a feeling and it's my personal opinion. I feel that we've let the greed run rapid too much, too long, and it's gotten too big to where that decency that Bobby has, unfortunately, 6 billion other motherfuckers are not gonna have it.
And I think, and thanks a lot, Freddie. And I think maybe kind of my outlook is maybe kind of a reflection of my own, my own philosophy and the way I try to treat people and go through life.
So let me ask you a question, because I'm interested in what you said. If you could, and it was your choice, and you could do it with no obstacle, money was an obstacle,
right.
Politicians were an obstacle, how do you feel you would try to instill the decency in other people?
That's a good question. I think that, we're kind of a sum of our experiences, and
let's just say the world was listening to you right now.
No,
and politicians did not exist.
Well, we're I don't know if I can. Well, the way I see it is just like we are some of our experiences, and there's things that have occurred to us in our lives throughout, the way and the time that we're here on the planet that shape our worldview. And if you grow up in a certain environment, you adapt to that environment, and our survival instinct is still pretty much the main our main imperative, right? Like continuing, self-preservation, and but also, and that, so self-preservation is also like a byproduct of that, or maybe they're linked. Maybe it's like one and the same in a way. Is competition, and we are designed, we're geared, from the very beginning to compete amongst each other, right? For resources, for shelter, for food. In our case, like for women, I mean, well, in your two's cases, I don't know about me. I'm fucking. I'm just kidding. No, but what I was going to say is that so in a way. There's there's fundamental things about human nature, and I don't like it when people do fucked up shitty things, and we should be held accountable for people do something like completely terribly awful and ruining lives and stuff like that. Of course, I wouldn't want that to happen, but to also understand that sometimes people act the way they do is because of things that they've been through before. But then again, there's also sociopathic motherfuckers that maybe have the inability to empathize. And so maybe even then we realize that empathy as a species is really vital to us being able to continue and progress, because if we don't have that, then we can't work together. And therefore, if we're always putting our self-interest first, then we're not going to go anywhere, because eventually, we need to figure a way to, like the sun is gonna like end up expiring with its age. Of course, that's like who knows whatever people might appear to be or look like at that point down our development. But I'm just saying is that I think there's these things about us, like bringing about somebody sociopathic, like we identify that as something that like an aspect of people that that is not helpful. Now, I mean, I don't think I'm really answering your question. But
well, all right. Just to kind of broaden it out a little bit, you're talking about the whole.
That was hella broad, but go ahead.
That's the problem with this shit, man. Is like you got to look at several pages at the same time. But I've made this argument a couple of times because the concept fascinates me. But the idea that something like sociopathy may have been one of those hangover. I mean, it may have been beneficial at certain times. The example I use is basically if you got, somebody in the tribe where it's like, hey, these dicks across the fucking valley or keep coming over here and raiding us and shit. If we send old Jerry over there to, it's like, hey, can you go take care of him? He's like, yeah, sure. And he walks off and then comes back at sunset covered in the blood of our enemies. And it's like, hey, what's for dinner? You know what I mean? Well, that motherfucker might be useful. But what I was going to say, talking about self-preservation, okay, take empathy and being polite to people in everyday society. You could make a reasonable subjective argument that like, well, it doesn't really benefit me to be polite to people because I don't really get anything back from it. But if you take a step back and you go, okay, there may be sociopaths running around my environment. If they observe that we're all being polite to each other, they might copy that behavior.
Wear the mask. So what I want to say is also, okay, so like in that way, someone with those sociopathic tendencies, right, that only benefits themselves. People who...
Well, no, but I mean, it benefits me if... I have a reasonable suspicion that you're not a sociopath, but I don't know about Freddy over here. I just met the motherfucker. So, like, I got to be polite to you in the hope that way if Freddy's mask slips and he just starts swinging on us or something, we're like, Freddy's a problem.
But still, I think we've managed to get to where we are as people because of our ability to kind of work together. And so someone with those kinds of behaviors, that it only really in the end, they're only still looking out for number one and themselves. And eventually I do believe that once their nature is revealed, I mean, there's no, they're exposed for who they are. And so it only benefits them. So, whereas, the other, on the flip side of that is like those things like, take about politeness or cooperation or kind of being able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, that in a way, like, when you live your life in a certain way, that benefits us to all as a group. And we move forward. I've chosen a profession. I don't know if I chose it, but basically I didn't know what the fuck I was going to do with an English degree.
Tripped headlong.
What?
Tripped headlong.
Yeah, I tripped headlong into becoming a teacher. But the truth is that I think that it really does, though. I fell into something that plays to my maybe altruistic nature and my positivity and sort of, I mean, wanting to see people succeed, wanting to see my students succeed, wanting to see them grow, wanting them to feel proud of their work and that they've done something and that we all do this together. Because of course it's sort of like how we move forward. It's these older generations kind of like bring up the younger. I don't have any kids, but I am in my way, kind of feel like I'm still kind of maybe doing some kind of contribution, whether or not, it's 100% effective or whether I'm doing a really good job as an educator. That's debatable, but, I mean, still like on a broader sense and a more philosophical angle, like basically like, who am I? And those aspects of my personality that like that kind of thing has played into me being part of a process that I feel furthers us. Now, I don't know. Now, what I wanted to say though, when you asked about like, if I had a way of maybe some kind of advice or something that.
No, not advice. I was literally saying, if you had the power and money and politicians was not an option to actually change that, how would you do it?
I don't know. And to be honest with you, I'm like the last fucking person you should listen to about anything. And
don't take the easy way out.
No. But this is what I want to say. Is that
jokes and jokes.
I think that that the concept of like an evil twin, right? That there's like maybe there's two identical twins, right? And one of them's good and one of them's evil. I would say, like, say you cloned me, or maybe say they were like, like I was,
more you. That's what you think would fix the problem?
No, God. What I want to say is this: is that like, say, like, if there were just like, I don't know, like just theoretically speaking, if you can like clone me at this point right now, right, with all the set of experiences that I've had, with everything I've ever been through, right? And so like there's like a room full of like 100 Bobbies, right? And we don't know who the original is.
Did you say 100 Bobbies or 100 bodies?
Bobbies.
Okay,
Bobbies.
right.
Okay. Let's just say, okay, so say that like in a way like that could happen, and none of us knows who the original is, right? But there's like a room full of all of us right now. It's like, oh shit, we're all the same, right? All identical, all the same at that point. Now you go and you release us out into the world. There's going to be this version. And I guarantee you, there's going to be a fucking bastard. There's going to be a monster amongst one of them, And so I feel, and there's going to be some in between.
Did you just admit to having multiple personalities? What the fuck?
I'm trying to remember the author's name at the moment, but there's a quote: the line of good and evil runs down the center of a man's soul. So basically, the idea that like the potential for
And there'd be versions of me that are better than me who I am right now. And there would be versions of me that are and so that's so I mean, does that make any fucking sense?
Yeah. No, I follow you on that.
All right.
The thing, whatever happens once from that moment forward is going to affect, the sum of what you are plus the sum of what will happen to you in the future can. Greatly a whole butterfly effect thing. It's like,
or maybe just assume in a similar scenario that if you could do that from people like from birth, But I mean, I think just I don't know. There would still be versions of ourselves that maybe.
Well, I think that's where we get into. I mean, as a species, like speaking, we get ourselves into problems where we start. There's nothing wrong. I've been making this argument too recently. There's nothing wrong with ideology, as in studying ideals, going, okay, if I made a perfect thing, what would it be like? How would it function in the world? But to assume that your idea or anybody's idea of a perfect system, this meets all of my needs,
right.
So it must work for everybody. When you start trying to be implement that ubiquitously, it's not going to. There's something. So, all right, great example. We were talking about sociopathy. There's like the whole autistic spectrum, man, where you get these people that are super sensitive to these very minute details of existence. You know what I mean? It's like, the paint's too shiny. Okay, so there's going to be just these little things that you are not. I mean, perspective is something we discuss a lot in our society at this point. It's like, well, you got to look at it from this way. And you do, you know, you have to make allowances, which is one argument for, if I can wave my tiny little patriotic flag for just a second, man, one of the reasons that I do love the country of my birth is it was built on the idea of as loose a reign as possible. Now,
right.
obviously,
And challenging power systems, or that power, the one that was.
Yeah. You have, I mean, part of it is the formation where you had all of these disparate states that were essentially their own little countries that had their own wants, had their own needs, had their own circumstances, and trying to figure out a system that was loose enough and yet broad enough to encompass them all under one system was...
Or ideology.
Yeah, which is, I mean, you go back to like the 1950s where it's like, we can't have any communists in here. And it's like, well, no, it's not that we don't want the communists. We just don't want the communists to be able to tell all of us that we're communists. You know what I mean? Having a few it's like, one of the reasons I would have voted for old Bernie Sanders' ass is not that I think he would have gotten in there and ushered in the socialist utopia. That wouldn't have fucking happened.
Right.
But there would have been at least a little move of the needle. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean,
I just wanted free healthcare. That's all I wanted.
Yeah. I mean, well, we were talking the other day
free
about
education, damn it.
We were talking the other day about the problems with the whole Affordable Care Act, and if anything, the benefit that came about is that we are now having a massive discussion on the national level about what it would take to implement, you know, what am I looking for here? Socialistic medicine, you know what I mean? A broad, you know, all-encompassing system.
You know, and there is another part of me that basically does feel that, you know, that whole fallibility of people, you know, and that this is one of the reasons why I don't believe like in the Illuminati, right? Because people fuck
you don't believe in the 13 bloodlines?
because is that a thing?
Behold a pale horse. Yeah, that's a thing. Go ahead.
But what I was going to say is that
we can start talking about Masonic doctrine up in this motherfucker.
What I want to say is that people like they fuck shit up. They're stupid, and you know, like they are eventually going to, you know, kind of like you can't get people to work. It's funny. Like I'm going to totally contradict like everything I kind of just said. But you know, for me to believe that there's like a small organization of people that like in control of everything. Like if you see any kind of bureaucratic like system or organization, or like people try to work like in some kind of like managerial, so it's like everything is kind of a version of everything else. You know, and there's always morons. There's always people that don't do their job. There's always and you know the risk of things. You know, it would have to be perfect, and perfect doesn't exist. You know, for something to be on the level of running the world and controlling it.
I disagree just on that small point. I disagree on the point that if somebody really wanted to do that, just for the sake of the example, if there was 5 very powerful people that could control the world, I disagree with the part that it would have to be perfect. Because I do feel that, and we don't have to go into detail because I think the point would be lost. But think about just our government. How many different government officials, not even counting the aides and all that shit, the real government officials, the House, the Senate, Congress, all that shit. How many people are running this one government right now? So think of all that shit and why there's so many disagreements, so on and so forth because of that. But I feel that if there was 5 potential people running the world, it would be possible. It doesn't have to be perfect. The reason being is because it's easier to agree and disagree with 5 people than it is with 1,200 or however many people run our country, our government.
I don't know, man.
And it doesn't need to be perfect. I'm pretty sure 5 people would fuck up, but it's easier to clean and cover the fuck up of 5 people than it is to clean and cover just the fuck up of like, you know, the way they've been fucking.
You know,
no, and I will want to go on record and say I'm not saying that I advocate or that I believe that there's 5 fucking people
Right.
running the world. It was just an example.
right, but just I mean,
It's
like
9 people.
like I think, you know, the amount of effort for an undertaking, you know, and the energy and the manpower and everything like involved is proportionate to the job that is trying to be done, and therefore
I really do. I do want to go on record and say this though. I really do think that if they really wanted to, 5 or 10 people, they could. They
But for
could run
how
the
long?
world. But okay, I don't know for how long, but I can tell you the why I believe it. And it's very, to me, it seems very simplistic. And I'm gonna give it to you real easy. Look at the banking system just in this country. Everything that they do, that they should do, and that they're supposed to do, and then all the other shit that we know that they do that they're not supposed to.
okay,
Money makes the world go around is all the fucking
right.
saying.
And so what? So basically now, like, let's say there are this 5 to 10 group organization that's pulling all the strings. And what the point that you made earlier is that greed comes into play. So these people would have to be in perfect concert and not want more than what the other person has, because what's going to happen is, like, from according to like what you're saying about human nature, somebody's going to start taking out somebody else, and that's when the power structure is going to fall apart, because you would have to, not only would you need complete equal power, you'd have equal trust.
True to a certain extent. We also go back to what I said after that. What I said after that was it's easier to deal with the agreement and disagreement of 5 people than it is. Think about it this way, bro. Let me give you, I like where you're going with it. So let me give you this. Because we need numbers and we need examples. So I'm going to give it to you like this. Let's say that there's $1 trillion, right? That runs the world, just for the sake of the example. And let's say that this $1 trillion is run and held all by these 5 people. Think about it. How many times around does $1 trillion go into 5 fucking people? A shitload of times, right? So let's go back to what you said earlier. Let's say that, hey man, fuck you because of this and that and the other, and you did this, or I need more money for that. The greed, right? Mm-hmm. But then we go back to the agreement. I'm sure that these people could be like, hey bro, it's still $1 trillion. And then I'm pretty sure that, again, this is just hypothetically speaking, I'm pretty sure that these 5 people are also very intellectually smart, because they wouldn't be the 5 people running the world if they weren't smart.
All right. So
what I'm pretty sure what I'm getting at, I'm pretty sure they would think logically. Mm-hmm. And if I think logically, and remember I'm stupid, if I think logically, I would weigh my options. Okay, am I going to let this dismantle over this agreement and we may lose $1 trillion? Or can I just compromise, shut the fuck up, and keep the boat moving and keep my $1 trillion?
But that's a very specific and detailed hypothetical scenario that hinges that relies on a lot of things to stay afloat. And and of course, I mean, is the possibility there? I mean, I don't know. I mean, again, you said,
there's a lot of possibilities there.
Right.
You gave me a possibility, Sean. I'm sorry, bro. Am I yelling?
No, I'm just correcting the game.
You gave me a possibility. Sean gave another possibility, and I gave you another possibility, and that's what those are. But what we, and I'm not saying you're not trying to do that, but what we are trying to do is give each other these valid points on how all these 3 possibilities that we laid out could be. And I'm just telling you, again, I go back to my main point, the main source of my point. I'm not saying that this is happening or that I support the thought. I'm just telling you that if somebody really wanted to sit down and do it, they could.
Okay, so I think
That's all the fuck I'm saying.
I think that when it comes to like people like running things that require a lot of effort and that
So you don't believe in the Rothschild child?
it's not. I mean, it's not that I don't believe in them. I mean, they exist, obviously, but
No, that's not what I meant.
But to the extent of the control or whatever, that's one thing. But what I want to say also though is any systems, no matter what, there's always going to have to be a system in play for something. For something to exist, for something, whatever. Yeah. And so whether
that goes way back to what we were saying, that goes way back to the Greeks. And
shit. So whether it's a government, whether it's a mom and pop, store, corner store, whether it's a gang who's trying to do some kind of illegal activity, or a school, there's always got to be a system in place for these things to try to run and to accomplish the goals of what it sets out to do. And basically,
by the way, I have the answer to the question that I asked you. You remember how I asked you, how would you make the world a better place?
Blow it up.
And he, by the way, Bobby Garza said that. He disagrees with me. And whoever was that participated in that conversation that we had about it disagreed with me. I think it was Joseph.
We going back to the get rid of money thing?
Yeah.
Okay. See, then if we got rid,
I believe that just get rid of money. You don't need it.
No, if we got rid of money, we would find something to replace money.
Yeah.
We would.
That was my point.
That was the same point. Case I made.
But that would become money. It's competition. Like I said, it comes back to our essential thing. You would have to get rid of competition.
And again, it goes back to my main fucking point. Greed. As humans, we will not let go of greed because that it's already been shown to us that through greed we've gained power. And because of our human nature, one human is always going to want to have power over somebody else.
Right, Freddy,
that goes way back to like the slave shit.
Let me throw you a kink without completely going over the argument that I made in that conversation with Joseph, which was basically that the more ambitious minded will always... They don't just want that thing. They need the extra resources. You need to give them a mechanism where they can have that extra resource to accomplish whatever that greater goal is that they have. Now, granted, within the confines of whatever society deems acceptable. But here's the other kink, man. Think about gift giving. Like, have you ever been in that scenario? Like, I know people joke like, oh, giving somebody money for Christmas is like the laziest gift. But think about it. If they have food, they have shelter, they have, even their entertainment at home. What do you give them? Give them a few extra bucks and be like, whatever else you want to do it with that. And that scenario right there is, I think, built into us as people, man. Like, think about it. Somebody comes to your house, you're like, hey, man, can I get you some food? Can I get you something?
What would it be, going back to what you were saying, what would it be if that doesn't exist?
No, but the thing is,
we would find a thing, man. There would be some means of trade.
That's my point. That's exactly my point.
Greed is...
Why would you want to find something else to replace it?
Because we have that drive in us, man.
And that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying that thought, that process that you were telling us earlier, that's exactly why I'm telling you, because of what he's saying and what he said before, that wouldn't work. And you would never see that as my point.
Well, see, and so we've recognized greed as, as a flaw in human nature. Or something that people maybe shouldn't, aspire to be greedy. But I think greed is just sort of, there's something within us that maybe can turn, that greed comes out of.
Well, okay, let me throw this idea at you, because this is already working on the back of the head while you're bringing this up. I think for the most part, and that's one of the reasons I'm throwing it out, because I can't think of a single example of, say, let's start with the 7 deadly sins, with greed, sloth, lust, and then I fall apart after that. Gluttony, avarice. No, that's not. What's the other one? Fuck it.
Wrath.
Yeah, all of these things come about through drives within us that are not inherently themselves wrong or evil.
Like they become corrupted.
Like greed, I really do think comes out of...
That's what I said earlier.
Right. It comes out of that need for safety. We want, okay, I have my food for today, but if I can save up enough food to be good for the next week or next month or next year, then all the better. Now, if I have enough that we have enough for the next week,
so we
month,
go
year.
back. So with you saying that, we go back to what Bobby was saying.
Right.
Why is it that then?
Where's that corruption come in?
Yeah, not only that, but what he was saying earlier. Why is it that because of the good of Bobby's heart, why can't you just settle? I'm not saying settle for what you have today and tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah, work for it and get it, but don't let the greed overtake to where it brings us back to the point of what he was saying, that, oh, okay, I want to have for today, tomorrow, and next month, but now I want to have more than Bobby, which brings us back to that.
Okay, well that might have something to do, or I would say mostly,
and it goes back to the thought that you said of because there's social paths around us. If those didn't exist, then then it would maybe be different.
Well,
not entirely,
look,
but
just to make that clear distinction, there is a distinction to be had there. I know there's some argument, but between sociopathy and psychopathy, where sociopathy is just that lack of emotional response in themselves. It's not that they're not intelligent enough. That's where I go back to like the whole, they will mirror what society shows them. So we should pretty much be decent to each other, just in case there are a few brothers and sisters amongst us who perhaps don't have that natural response.
Right.
Now, they're not inherently going to be, out for their own gain. Like, it doesn't mean they don't like you. It just, they're what do you call it? Studies out there that seem to show that they actually do have their group preferences. So it's not like they don't understand family, community, yada, yada. They just don't have that same response to stimulus that most people do. Now, the psychopaths are the ones that are, smile in your face and stab you in the back type of shit.
Now, to kind of throw this in there to answer your question from earlier, and to kind of again bring this back around, the reason as into why it's not possible, Bobby, to like be that genuine and have that feeling that you were describing that you had, that you walk for other people and so on and so forth. And y'all are gonna think that I'm corny as fuck, but I'm not trying to be corny.
Every day, Freddy.
I'm not trying to be corny. I'm like 150% honest with you, and it's very simple. It's because I don't even know if we ever did as human beings, but if we did, we no longer have that genuine love for one another. I strongly believe that if we had genuine love and caring for one another, it would be different. And I strongly believe that would be the biggest key to make what you're saying.
Okay, so you're talking about basically removing fundamental aspects of human nature. If that existed,
well, okay,
there would be no
remove?
comedy.
Well, hold on. Why remove?
Huh?
I don't think he's talking about removing.
But the absence of these things, like I feel like these are kind of things that fundamentally make us human, and so
because that's what you're used to.
But when you talk about something like
I'm gonna say something else, but this is gonna, if you want to, and I'm not saying you want to, it's just an example, but this is gonna lead like in a whole other direction. But this is just, let's focus on what I'm trying to answer for you and what you're asking. Because if you really think about it, and again, I get it, depending on what you believe, it varies. I get it. I'm not saying that. But if you go back to like the beginning, the beginning of everything, things weren't always like that. Like greed did not exist. And going back to not really what he said, but one of the examples that he was giving earlier is that at the beginning, everything was made from love. And that's why, because there was love, there wasn't greed, and there wasn't,
I would not discount fear and anger as well, man.
Yeah, and like, Well,
I mean, the whole survival thing, the safety issue that I was talking about, where I think greed kind of comes out of, that's a fear. It's like, oh shit, we might not have enough
I'm
food.
talking about even before that.
Now, okay, well, think about the whole.
That's what I meant.
Think about the whole in-group, out-group thing that seems to be hardwired into us, man, where it's like, okay, we three here as comedians, we are of a tribe, but like we have these overlapping loyalties in that, like, we all have family, we all have, communal connections outside of this community. You know what I mean? So it's these... I get what you're saying about, like, if we could all just go, love each other as brethren and sistren and just live together as the happy family. But you have to build that model in people's heads. And it's hard to do.
It won't happen. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Well, okay, here's the thing.
That's what I'm trying to say. And that's how I was trying to answer Bobby's question.
Okay.
That it won't happen because of the greed that has already been instilled, and that greed has overturned into this monster, which brings what you were saying, the competitiveness. Mm-hmm. You were saying the fear, the fear of maybe being left behind, mm-hmm. the fear of being trampled because of that.
Okay,
and that's overgrown so much that it can't overtake. Kind of like what you were saying earlier.
A discussion that we've been having on a national level for almost 10 years now is the whole the personhood of corporations. And granted, that conversation goes back 100 plus years, actually, if you talk about like Supreme Court rulings and all that. But the idea that a corporation can function the same as an individual citizen is... The problem with that is the very nature of a corporation... greed doesn't apply there. Their very function is to accumulate as much resources as possible, which is why you can't have unregulated capitalism. Capitalism is a beautiful thing. The functions that build up within capitalism are detrimental.
Even the same thing with communism. I mean, that are put in place into power, they end up manipulating it and sort of like turning it into a mutation of a fundamental idea, which doesn't necessarily account for that nature of people to be greedy and say like, and I know what's best for you and stuff.
I think communists are great on a social level. Like, they're great at building communities and shit, man. That's awesome. But the problem is, you go, hey, how should we run a nation? And it's like, we make them all farmers. And it's like, well, that's not going to fucking work.
So, and Freddy, what I feel like kind of what you're talking about in a way, like, would lead to the elimination of options and choice, because if we all, had this kind of like genuine love and all this kind of like specific kind of like very utopian society, like what would that look like? And therefore there would be no options, there would be no choice, there would be no comedy, because the one thing, this thing that we use as, I definitely like, it's a coping mechanism for ourselves. It's fun, but also the idea, the genuine desire to connect with people who may or may not align with the way you look at the world. But when we try to make people laugh and there's a connection there, I'm pretty sure that I've not trying to like make myself like, because I struggle on many levels when I'm on stage and try to perform, and things sometimes land, things don't. But I'm pretty sure that I
told you to jerk off right before going on stage. Hey man, did you know? Just side fun fact, that if you were to jerk off right before
a comedy show,
a big performance, a big speech or whatever it is. When you jerk off and you're done, and then like right after you're done, you release up to 40% of anxiety.
Right, I could imagine you're more relaxed. I would assume, and
then you can go on with your performance.
Okay, I might
completely brain fucked
up. But let's just say, like, what I want to say is,
look, all I'm saying is, if I walk in that back room at the theater and there's like a stack of fucking like Kleenexes. I'm looking at you, motherfuckers.
But what I was going to say is that I just through the process of doing it and gone through, being on stage like, X number of times, that I'm pretty sure that I've said something that made somebody laugh in which they necessarily don't agree or they live their life and see things in a different way than I do. But, this thing
I like where he's going with
that brings us together, right? And it's like, the shared experience through comedy. And that kind of like connects us. So if we eliminate the where our comedy comes from, like not so much eliminate, what I'm saying is like, if it comes from a place of our experiences, our views, our attitudes, our beliefs, and then we, attempt to make that connection. If everybody had that same kind of mentality of this altruistic nature and believing, in this, like you said, kind of like this genuine love and stuff for humanity, then and this perfect society was kind of created. That terrifies me. I would not want to know what the fuck that looks like. I would, that to me like freaks me out, because in the end we would not be individuals with voices. We would all be kind of like the same. It would, I think, for and that just seems
no, man, you would just bring your own flavor.
But let me throw
I'm not being sarcastic.
But what is flavor? What does that come from?
You would still be you, and this is the simplest way.
Does art exist?
No. This is the simplest way I can put it, even if you don't agree with it, but just for the sake of the example. You would still be you. You wouldn't lose your characteristics. You wouldn't lose who Bobby is. None of that. The only difference is money wouldn't be a factor.
That's
money, power, gold, or whatever it is, whatever you see as power would not be a factor. But Bobby would still be Bobby.
Okay,
Bobby could still go and talk to Sean and be like, "Hey, Sean, you want to go to dinner? Sean, you want to do this? Sean, let's go tell some jokes over there, Sean." Let's go tell people like how great or not great,
without necessarily like the worry of like of whether we're going to be able to pay for gas or eat food or pay for our bills and stuff like that, and having freedom to go in and pursue the things you want. And that's awesome, man. I mean, and I'm not thinking that's not a bad idea, but I mean, the thing is, I mean, it's a very philosophical thing.
Again, I want to go out on a limb, and I'm still going to say this. This will never happen.
Right.
Hold on. I have an example here for you. The Amish.
No.
Hold on. Think about this for a second, man. But think about this. They have there's the in culture, and then there's the out culture with the Amish. And not only that, but they have that whole they're Anabaptists, so they don't pretty much induct the kids into the religion until they are 16 and able to make their own choice. Yada yada. Now, let me throw this at you. Let's say we somehow develop our utopian society, whatever. What if we just set aside Pennsylvania? And anytime you want to,
you're fucking crazy. Just get all your shit out of your system and just go fucking
No. I'm saying like, okay, we're all born in Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvania is our nice little utopian society. Right. And at 16, you have the option to leave. You can leave and you can come back if you want to. You know what I mean? But once you're back here, you have to live under the rules. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We have you don't have the accumulation of wealth. You don't have all of this stuff. It's an enclosed community. We're all helping each other. Communist wet dream. But there's still all that stuff going on outside, man. I mean, it would basically be us having to agree to like a little like island of control in which we would say raise our families in this safe environment.
So what I mentioned earlier, what would that look like? Everybody would look the same.
Yes.
They'd all the same, and they'd be absent of choice.
Exactly.
And therefore, and our individuality, personalities, or who we are would kind of be limited. I'm pretty sure there's some there's probably the funniest motherfucking Amish person there, that people like, oh, Jacob is hilarious, or whatever.
I was about to say
Jacob keeps that shit to himself.
I was about to say, y'all do know that Amish comedy exists, right? Like it's a thing. I
do now.
Yeah.
I'm looking that shit up. I've heard a couple of comics that came out of the Amish community. I've never heard an actual Amish comedian.
now given...
What they have to
They're not going to open mics or having like a brick wall behind them while they go and talk like a bunch
as long as they don't touch the microphone, they're all good.
They're not like fucking... No, that's what I was going to say.
They're stumping and talking.
I don't know like too much of it. That's why I don't want to speak too much. But like they don't use a microphone. They don't, you know what I'm saying? Like they're gatherings and whatnot.
Right. Well, then what you're talking about...
I was going to relate it to was like fucking like people that do comedy.
Oh, they don't like the fucking. That's I mean, unless you're making kids, that's no.
People that do comedy in Dubai. Like the comedy exists in Dubai, but you just can't do or talk about certain things.
I would say that speaking about Amish, like they wouldn't necessarily maybe call that comedy. What we're talking about is like an art form that existed from the beginning of time.
Hold on,
in which
Bobby.
people entertain others.
Stress still exists if you're farming all fucking day and raising barns. Right. Now, granted, their humor is not going to be relatable necessarily to the greater world because we do live in a more complex society. Though one thing I wanted to bring in is even the Amish, as insular as they are and tied to these old traditions, they have on the whole accepted modern society in the sense of like they conduct business over the internet. You know what I mean? At least one person in the village has a fucking cell phone. You know what I mean?
Right. Well,
so there is. They're pretty much a test case for the rest of us. We're like, you know what? Let's let them live like they're living, and let's see how this goes. And I think really that's going back to the whole, the fundamental nature of American society is that we're all just living in these little test cases, which is why the idea of like, well, we should all model our cities like this and our communities like this. It's like, well, that's, if you live in the deserts of Arizona or the fucking, the rainforests of the Pacific Northwest, those are different fucking environments with different needs.
Right.
You know what I mean? Well, like down here, we don't have that culture of like the winter. You know what I mean? We don't fucking put the chains on the tires and we don't. They're just different things. Now, the flip side of that is we make sure that we hand out ACs to the elderly people in the summer because the heat can kill you.
I wanted to make a point when we're talking about comedy. I think it's just something that it's just the name that we give to something that's always existed, where this thing that connects us, which is laughter, right? And so it's just sort of like something that's evolved over time into this kind of thing, this medium that we really, really love. But like talking about, there's always been people that have been able to make people laugh more than other people, right? And even amongst the funny people, they even throw us fucking into competition against each other, right? Congratulations, Freddy, fucker. No, right? But that's what I'm saying. No, but right, it always goes back to it. Right. But what I say is like, so, but there's always been like maybe some people that have like that maybe a natural ability to kind of maybe entertain or kind of and maybe there was a story maybe it was a storyteller, maybe it was some like elder, whatever, and then it just kind of like adapts because there's like this need that we have for.
Dude, I think if you took bumper stickers back to any point in history, as long as they understood what the
context meant, or like show them a meme.
That concept, the meme, man, the idea of being able to encapsulate that little idiosyncratic variable of life, going like, hey, isn't this funny? I think that's built in.
Yeah, man. Exactly. And definitely, and even in different ways, or maybe and we can even broaden it to any other kind of entertainment, whether it be music or creating a story or doing something that is intentionally meant to elicit laughter. There's shit, I had a fucking thread.
Hell, man, the whole pratfall, you know what I mean? Somebody slips on the banana peel.
Yeah, exactly.
That shit's universal.
Or like someone farts,
Oh, fuck
they're the most primitive fucking source of laughter. Something that we have is farting. That's why I love Galapagos by Kurt Vonnegut, because there's a point where, basically like there's an apocalyptic event that occurs and we all basically like become these kind of like seal, like hybrid creatures that, you fast forward and we're just there, like, it's like a utopian society. We're all there just happy. We're all just being like these seal things, like on a beach or whatever. And basically we're there. But the thing that, that still happens is that if a seal farts, the other seals laugh. Like they and that's still like, and I think it's such a very beautiful kind of thought that, it's a really good book. I kind of want to go back and read it now, but I read it a long time ago. But I guess what I wanted to say is I can't really remember now. Shit. Who knows what the fuck I was trying to say?
Laugh, love, don't be a dick.
Yeah, but
pretty much.
But there was something that there was a point, and maybe I'll come back to it, a little bit. But
that's one of the things that scares me about the. We were talking about the interface between like people and computers, and once we get the ability to put electronic signals into our own brains, I do have that creeping concern of the what's the word I'm looking for here? When we start trying to change ourselves to match each other,
we're going to lose our identities.
There's that problem. That's an issue that we're going to need to start facing once that technology becomes available. So,
because in a way, what we're doing is we're eliminating certain things that make us struggle, and so when we do that, and we. Well,
one of the things we're struggling against is the fact that everybody else has a different opinion than we do. So if we just all made them think the same way, so I mean that's part of that whole.
My biggest concern, if that were to happen, is everybody would steal my jokes. Do you know how hard it is to come up with a joke that works?
Yeah.
Oh well, dude, think about it.
Shit.
How it is now, where it's like, oh shit, I had an idea. I better go punch that into like Google and just see if anybody else wrote that down.
It's not the problem. Isn't everybody stealing jokes? The problem is everybody thinking that the same thing is funny. That's when shit gets fucked up because the thing is, like, for example, you got a Bob Marley shirt on, right? I like reggae. I'll jam some Bob Marley here and there, but I don't fucking listen to him like all the time. I have my own preferences in music. I've got my own personal preferences and everything. So,
we're not gonna take it.
That's not a Bob Marley song, Freddy.
I didn't say it was.
But what I was going to say is that choice and preference is also, I think, something that's very, very to be an individual. And so it's not so much being able, like the stealing of the joke, is that if we all find the same thing funny, then we're no longer individuals. So the fact that somebody doesn't find me funny is actually pretty fucking awesome, because that means that there's going to be the person that is going to connect with me and jive,
honestly, man, like I disagree. I do disagree with that. I don't think that you would lose yourself. I think you can think very similar. So, like, what I'm saying is, no matter what happens, like, so I'm going to try to word it to you like this. Every human being, and this is a fact, no matter what you believe in, we all have DNA, right? Everybody. We're made of DNA, right? Now, it's been scientifically proven, because I've had conversations with other people where it would go sideways. But no, let's stick to science, because we all tend to believe science to an extent. It's been scientifically proven that there's no DNA that's alike. Like, there's no two DNA that's alike, right? Mm-hmm. So, with that being said, to me, without going into detail and breaking my head about
right. I see what you mean.
That shit tells me that no matter what happens, there will never be another Sean, thank God, and there will never be another Bobby, because it's you, bro.
Right. So these carbon copy, like straight, like.
Well, just to cut this off a little bit, as Bobby pointed out earlier, the whole concept of like you could take the exact same individual and release them into different circumstances, and they're going to react differently. I really think
twins also though sometimes live like super similar lives. I mean,
yes, very true. I mean,
I'm like arguing with myself now.
well, one of the things one study I found interesting was they were studying political ideology, and they were finding that twins who were raised in vastly different environments usually kind of came around temperamentally to the same sort of political beliefs.
Right.
I think there is definitely something to the idea that there is never going to be a perfect carbon copy. Even if you had that, you would still have the environmental factors.
Right.
And part of humor is not necessarily, all right, even if we all had the same ideas in our head, because our brains don't work the same way on the minute level, we're putting, the whole word test. If I say blue, what's the first thing that comes to your head? Everybody's going to give you a different answer, or they might give you a different variation of the same answer. So part of that humor thing is not necessarily, going like, hey, you think this, don't you? It's just making that connection that somebody else may not have made.
And, and also...
Yeah, but, okay, that's fine. That's what I was trying to avoid. That's fine and dandy. There's no problem with that.
There's no avoiding it now, Freddy. We're down in the bottom of a hole with nothing but shovels.
Hold on. That's fine, man. But that was my whole point. Like, without going into detail about it, it's still, I believe that it's still the same thing, dude. It goes back to your human DNA. You're still going to be different.
What I wanted to bring up, I brought up, you liking, the music that you like, me liking music but also, maybe there's something that, even more, something that shapes our choices. For example, maybe, if you hold on real quick, let me just say this. Let's say that you really like spicy food, right? And
this is trippy. You fucking took the words out of my mouth. That's the example that I was going to use next. And let me explain real quick why this is trippy in two ways. It's trippy because I'm trying to prove to him the DNA thing, but it's also trippy because if you think of it, what we're talking about from his point of view, he just kind of picked up on what I was going to tell you. Honestly, bro, go ahead and continue your thought. I was going to say, that's what I was going to say. The example that I was going to give him, I was going to say, think about spicy food, or think about food in general. Think about a food that you, Bobby, likes. Give me anything. But something that you really like and that's not very common.
Not very common.
Anything. It could be one fucking thing.
I mean, I like basically everything. But
one thing, Bobby. One thing that
you never heard his jokes about growing up a fat kid.
This is true. Now, let's just say, I
you like wasabi?
Not very much, as some people, but okay, or preferring sweet over salty, right? Say,
I need something a little bit more detailed. That's too broad.
No, okay, something that
because this was going to be my point, just for the sake of the example. Let's say that I like tamales.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say, for the sake of the example, that you don't, right? Mm-hmm. And in your head, in your brain, right now you already know that you don't like them because you already tasted them before. You tasted them before, and before your brain told your body, this shit's not good.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I will avoid this.
Exactly. My point is that before that action occurred,
I was already not going to like it.
No, I wasn't going there. Okay. But I kind of we'll go back to
Right.
But you took that food, you put it in your mouth, you have a palate, and your palate, in a sense, again, without going into detail, it's structured through your DNA, who you are. So that palate is designed, or which way you want to see it, to not like tamales. I like tamales, and I'll probably never stop liking them, and you don't like them. So that I'm telling you, these are characteristics that I believe that no matter what happens, and I'm at this point, I'm not talking about the food. I'm not talking about that example. I'm just saying that I really strongly believe that we have original characteristics as human beings, and even a bigger example. As far as the last time I checked, there's over 7 billion people on the planet, and it is just I really do strongly believe that there's not one other person that is exactly like you, based on the now 2 examples that I gave you. So I really also do believe that also trickles into comedy. There's comedy that you may like, no matter what they do here, no matter what they control, no matter what Sean was saying earlier about the AI, like if they were to do something with your brain and shit like that, we have different tastes in women,
and that's right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's another example. The whole women thing, the attraction to or a man. I mean, if you like a man, I'm not saying you like a man, but anybody, you know, you like a man, you like a woman, you like them both. That's that's the thing too. So no, for real,
greedy motherfuckers.
Yeah, like you like them both, right? So
like mathematically speaking, that actually does kind of like open up a lot of fucking choice options for you.
So what I'm saying is that comes from you. You may not like, you're a man, and if you like a man, you may not like the same man that another woman may like. You know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah.
Follow what I'm saying?
Why girls have liked me before in the past, I have no fucking idea what was wrong with them.
I got 2 points on this, man. To kind of take it back to the food a little bit. One is just an interesting fact, or offshoot, which would be cilantro, which
I like.
We're all good on cilantro. Cilantro is motherfucking delicious. But there are some people who have a genetic component that does not allow them to taste cilantro as anything but soap. Yeah. I feel bad for those people.
Yeah.
2, which is a lot closer to the I think the subject that we're talking about as far as ideas and thoughts, is that it's been found, at least in certain studies, that the bacteria in your gut can dictate what you will find palatable.
Yeah, true.
So,
but
maybe gut bacteria relies on DNA.
Well, okay, think about this, man. I've seen this
and it's an organism.
Yeah,
we're going way deep into
this. And Bobby, you've been on the planet a few years longer than I have, so I'm sure you've run into this, man, where you have people who their tastes, their underlying philosophies shift over time.
I was gonna say I used to not like pickles, and now I fucking eat the shit out of a pickle. You know, and
all it takes is one good pickle.
Perfect example.
Which goes back to our bisexual discussion.
Well, I say logically speaking, it would be logical to be bisexual because, you know, if to have, you know,
not really,
to be able to pick the number of partners that you could have access to on a sheer like numbers wise, that would be logical. So basically, my whole like sexual preference or the way I am is kind of illogical to like just be singularly fixated on women, but.
Unless you want that whole propagation of the species thing to keep
I thought he was actually gonna come out. He was like,
no, dude. No. I mean, shit. I mean, you guys would still accept me either way. I know you would.
Yeah,
no, but
I wouldn't change my opinion of you a bit.
I love Theo Von has a great bit about it, and it's not really a complicated bit. But every time that he touches that subject or it comes to that, he's like. I think he's like 36 years old, I think. And he's like, I think I'd like to be gay a little bit. You know, like when I'm about 80, you know, when I have nothing. He says, when I have nothing else to do but like look out the window, I think I might suck a little dick.
You know, it's just, we kind of got a little bit off topic there. But,
yeah, and actually, I mean, that'd be a whole other conversation, man. But the whole the way we're
talking about preferences.
Yeah. There's some things that we can't have
or the shift.
I'm still stuck on the same point of like that you're saying that we wouldn't have the
individuality or
Exactly.
uniqueness.
and uniqueness.
Okay.
I
Well,
believe,
as you said,
just to cap off my argument, and if you want to touch it again, we can go in it again if y'all find something else. But just to cap off my side of the argument, I believe what you're saying, your uniqueness, your originality, and who you are, no matter what happens, you'll never lose based off of your DNA.
Well, that's why the one thing, and I'm pretty sure Sean will be able to definitely weigh on this, is that that's why the one thing that actually does kind of freak me out, and I see a lot of potential for like disaster or just kind of like this, something that we've never been able to deal with before and see coming is engineering, changing genes and gene manipulation, like the whole CRISPR thing. You know, that's definitely, that's scary, because those things that make us unique and individuals can now definitely we can be designed. They would designer babies and stuff. You know, like, and of course the idea to think like, oh, like to make them get rid of this flu or get rid of this reaction to like a certain like virus or
perfect. That's a perfect example, and I don't know if you're gonna lead into this. The part that I'm gonna say, but even at that, and somebody, if y'all know something that I don't, prove me wrong or show me or something. But as far as I know, I kind of go back to the same thing where even if we were cloned per se, they're still not able to get the 100% cloned match.
Okay, it's not exact.
On DNA. So even as a clone, your fucking clone would be different. So your clone might look like you, but they might have a bigger dick or a smaller dick.
It even goes farther than that, because even if you had a perfect copy, you have to contend with the epigenetics, which is basically you got to look at your DNA strand as a circuit breaker, where it's just a bunch of switches that are on and off. And at any point, even during your life, when your RNA copies that, it can change which switches are flipped. You know what I mean? That's
like random kind of.
Well, it's not even random.
It's not random, but like introducing like this sort of idea of that possibility.
Like the studies that like seem to show that, say, if your grandparents had to live through a famine period, then their grandchildren would be more likely to be susceptible to obesity, because they're kind of, that switch going like, no, don't eat so much is kind of turned up a little bit. So it's like, no, I should probably eat some more.
Right.
No, that's a rough example.
No, but I see what you mean, because it gets past, it shifts down the line, and no matter what, even if you build a baby in a lab, whatever, the baby's going to go on, and unless all babies are going to be built in labs, which of course could be a possibility down the road.
I remember.
There's going to be a shift. There's going to be a change no matter what down the line.
I remember, and somebody listening, watching, or y'all, when y'all have a chance, Google it. I remember now. I don't know if it was a year ago, 2 years ago, very recently is my point. I think it came out on the news where they were able to successfully clone a baby something. I think it was a sheep.
Mm-hmm. Dolly.
And they look exactly the same. Whatever. They looked at organs. Everything was exactly the same. But when they dug as deep as the DNA of the sheep, it was different. So somebody Google it, and this was recent. This was like within the last 4 years, I think.
Well, you know what the issue with Dolly
Did anybody
was?
hear that by any chance? No.
I haven't heard of any recent ones, but I know they've been doing the clone studies for a while now.
No, I know, but they've always failed. They were finally able to successfully clone. Well, I think it was a sheep.
No, they had cloned Dolly back in 98, 99. The problem with Dolly is they also, when they cloned it over the...
Wait, what the fuck who's Dolly?
They cloned a sheep in Scotland? I can't remember. Anyway.
Definitely not the United States.
Of course, I don't know if anybody remembers that motherfucker from Rael from the Raelians or whatever the fuck they were, those crazy motherfuckers.
Oh, it was okay.
It was the Star of David with the swastika. It was like,
Like some weird cult thing.
Okay, yeah. And the weird thing was they let them into Israel for a while, but they were claiming that they had cloned a person back in like 2001 or something. But going back to Dolly, the issue was that the telomeres on the DNA strands, which the telomeres are actually, it's basically junk at the end of the DNA, so that when it gets copied, if it gets cut off before the end of the copy, it doesn't affect any of the other information. Right. So you have like buffer on the front end and the back end of the DNA, so that even if there's some loss, you don't lose structural information.
Right.
That's actually what aging is that your telomeres go away, and all of a sudden you start getting genetic deformities as the copies are made. So your cells aren't able to regrow. So even though they were able to birth the cloned sheep, that sheep was already as old as the sheep they had cloned it from, genetically speaking.
That's what you mean.
So that sheep died early.
Wait, maybe it's that one that I'm talking. No,
well, it's always possible. Somebody was telling me something about they were trying to clone, and this is an idea that's gone back since at least to the 60s, but cloning pigs to with human DNA so that they would be able to harvest the organs and use them in people without having, because they already use like heart valves and shit like that from pigs, but it's...
So if you can just build a pig heart, well then what? And then put it in, well then why would
yeah.
Okay.
Basically.
Well, would you guys eat cloned meat or like meat that was like, that wasn't necessarily like, came from like a live animal, but it was
I always said that I wouldn't.
I don't know if cloned is the right word, but I'm saying like lab.
That's what it is. That's genetically, what do you call it? Genetically engineered in a lab. I always said no. Like when I first heard of that, I was like, fuck that. I wouldn't eat that. But then, bro, I saw, and I'm going to say something really fucked up and I don't care. And I still eat there is the sad part. I saw a documentary on how they produce and they clean
McDonald's or
McDonald's food. No, the food, not even the place.
Pink sludge.
Yeah, the
pink slime.
Pink slime.
I'm gonna say some shit that's probably
bread that motherfucker and serve it.
Probably gonna kill our endorsement ever with McDonald's. But these motherfuckers, I don't know if they still do it now. I'm pretty sure they do. But they actually get the raw meat and they put it in this like glass container, and they literally dump real Clorox in it to clean it,
to kill the bacteria
and stuff like that. And then they go through they go through processing and all of that.
That's one thing people don't realize about mass-produced food is that you are getting, unless that, like, I know the idea is you want that food to be sealed, vacuum safe on the fucking shelf, but the problem is there's no bacteriological content in there. Yeah. And a lot of the reasons that we are able to eat the wide variety of food that we do is because we get the bacteria into our system that can break down that food.
Yeah.
I mean, like, people talk about, I think it was 97 or so, they first came across a bacteria that was able to break down plastics. And they just did a study maybe 5 or 6 years ago that shows that most people in Europe have plastic in their system. Like, you can find it in your stool, in your urine, and it's there. There's plastic in your body.
Because you consumed it accidentally, or because it's
in the environment, man.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons they outlawed those little micro beads in soap a couple years back, was because they were finding this stuff showing up in water supplies and in ground samples and all this shit.
Man, I use that shit.
Yeah. So to go back and answer your question, man, when I found that out about like McDonald's, I was like, bro, they're probably feeding us cloned ass meat already, and we don't even fucking know.
Well, it does, give the potential for like people who are like in food deserts or food shortages or places that like people are starving, dying from famine. That to give them some sustenance. Would that be a bad thing?
There was a while back too. That
Bobby, just to answer your question, going back, I wouldn't eat the first burger. I'd let you try it first.
Probably be down, man.
You motherfuckers are probably already ate about 10 of them motherfuckers. And I don't know why. Again, I go back to the same thing. I don't know why. See, McDonald's sounds real good right about.
It does, doesn't it?
Sounds fucking.
You know what? Our phones are listening. We check our phones. like
McDonald's specials and shit.
Yeah.
McDonald's sliding into your DMs.
So yeah, man. I saw that shit and I was like, "Fuck, really? Like that's how they do it, so on and so forth."
Right.
And I just had McDonald's like last week.
No,
it's funny how. And another thing that is proven, and you're not gonna hear it here first. It's been out. Another thing that's been proven, and everybody knows, McDonald's put some shit in their food that's as high as addictive as cocaine. It's not cocaine, but it's something that's highly addictive. That's why I keep going back to.
Well, I know that after this, I'm not going to McDonald's with $20, but it's still.
Yeah. Well.
Okay. I was kidding. That was a joke.
Yeah, I get you, man.
Sorry.
It's like mono. Let me get one of them Frosties, man.
Hold on. No wonder that ice cream machine's still broken.
McFlurry took on a whole new definition.
That shit is addictive, man.
Well, dude, they put
McDonald's. I'm talking about McDonald's is addictive. My God. Oh, damn, I can really go for some fucking away right now. Shit. Thanks for bringing it up. Fucking triggered me now. Fuck. But imagine if you sprinkle some Coke on McDonald's now. Damn, we got like fucking. I'm loving it.
Let me ask you a question.
I can't taste a damn thing, but it's delicious.
Let me ask you a question.
Right.
Let me ask you a question. And we don't have to go into detail about it, but just think about it. What is GMO? Tell me.
It's not
dude, if you spread that definition out to the very fucking limits,
right.
That includes selective breeding, which is something we've been doing as a species for at least 10,000 years. Well, now here's the thing, man.
My dog's a GMO.
Well, there's a theory, man, that like dogs and humans kind of co-evolved in the sense that, like, okay, the dogs that are the wolves that first kind of came up close to us,
right?
Like the ones that weren't coming up close to us weren't eating as much, probably weren't breeding as much, or at least not in the areas we were.
That behavior trait.
And also, when we got a little frisky and decided we needed to clear out the wolf population, the motherfuckers that were sleeping in the camp weren't the wolves we were talking about,
right?
And then there's also like,
I'm not gonna eat my friend.
Yeah, but they also had to have a different sort of pack structure, man. Like the way dogs are able to build diverse packs in that, like, there doesn't have to be not a familial link between them. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know if y'all have come across this stuff where they've re-examined the idea of like the alpha beta structure in wolf packs. Mm-hmm. More often than not, it's not that the strongest wolf is the alpha. It's that the father, the patriarchal head of the pack, is the top of the pack. It's literally all the way from dad down to grandkids. And where you get this beta dynamic is actually wolves that have come in from other packs, and they kind of take on a submissive role within the pack. Uh-huh. As opposed to, say, a lion troop, lion pride. There you go. Where, you know, the
lion troop,
the new top male comes in and he kills off everyone in the pack. That doesn't happen in wolf society because they are familially, like, they have that familial structure to their groups. Whereas dogs don't necessarily have that. It's a much more open association between individuals within the pack. So you're able to get, you know, this broader breeding population within the dogs, and then yada yada. And so some of the variations that we now see aren't necessarily things that we bred for. I mean, you look at some dogs, then obviously those were bred to be that, but for the most part they just kind of, they were adapting to us. You know what I mean?
Right.
The studies they did in Russia with the foxes, where the nicer foxes are the more sociable foxes.
Domestication of the silver fox.
Domesticated. That's what I was looking for. They got the floppy ears. They got the
those traits that we like and like find them right cute and adorable.
Yeah. They make eye contact more often.
But that's the scary part, though, of the flip side of that is that when you isolate all those nice and lovable things, you get those ones that come out like fucking just monsters, like evil, like just bastards, because they've got all those desirable positive traits. They basically have filtered down, and so this one gets like the super aggressive, not antisocial, but like
sometimes it's antisocial.
Yeah, the one that cannot be domesticated at all, because it is
wild. Yeah. Wild.
Right. Well, it's not so much wild because what it is like we're breeding them, right? So we get all the traits we want, and so what happens though? It's like gremlins, like how like freaking Gizmo was like the really sweet one, but then you got like the bastard one because they're like that one got all the negative like traits and stuff, So like when we go through this process of getting everything that we want, we inadvertently. There's going to be one that's going to be a byproduct is going to be the one that receives all the negative shit that we were trying to like clear out, and that's going to be concentrated in this one thing, and that's when it becomes a fucking like, and it's like it's unfortunate because it's almost like that creature is like in a like I'll use the word hell like loosely, but it's just sort of like it wasn't given a choice, I guess,
Well, that is another danger of having this utopian safe society is that if you eliminate all of the potential for kind of self-elimination, the person that's going to go out there and do the antisocial, dangerous, aggressive behavior.
We kind of need.
Well, not only that, I do think we need them. Like the idea that we're going to clean all the ills out of the species is retarded. Some of this stuff, as I said, about like the sociopathy, I think there's some of that is a holdover that we don't know what the future is going to look like, man. You know what I mean? This could all devolve back to feudalistic, warlords and shit if the right set of circumstances happen. So you don't want to eliminate the motherfucker that likes to live in the woods by himself and, collect guns and food because that dude, if everything goes to shit, we might need to learn from that crazy asshole. Exactly. He comes stumbling out of the shack going, "What do you want?" And it's like, "Hey,
show us how to live and survive.
You are the leader now." But yeah, if we're all kind of
bring me the women.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I get some more coffee real quick?
Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, you guys want to take a quick little break? I need to hit the restroom.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that sounds good to me.
You can.
Yeah. We'll edit.
Nice.
I was going to ask you all this.
Sure, is that okay? Oh shit. My bad.
Don't break my cans. My cans.
I like my pants here, which are for headphones. You rush right over here? Yeah. Right? Yes.
$2 and 12 months.
Well, maybe we should just. Maybe we should wrap it. Instead of thinking of like a long paper. But I was trying to step up to work.
Looking good. Battery life on everything's good.
I'm trying to check your lid. I realized the lid was out of the fucking shelf in there. I was like, fucking pop the Listerine before I found this fucking bowl.
Oh, dude,
You knew exactly what that was? Did you know what that sounded?
Yeah, man. You're right there, Chad.
Yeah, it was fine, man.
That shit was funny, bro.
Yeah.
Hey, you wanna? Oh, I was gonna say, you wanna step out and grab a smoke real quick,
Yeah,
or you wanna wrap this up?
I would say maybe if you want to, like, yeah, maybe just. It's not that I want to wrap it up. It's just that times. I mean, I took a nap when I was like 30-minute nap when I got home. I mean, it's 10:49. I just haven't eaten all day. I was gonna go to eat and get some shit from my apartment. But I mean, hey Sean, mate, your pen again. I can keep going for a little bit. I just want to wrap it up, and I really enjoy shooting shit with you guys. So maybe save some shit for like maybe another future episode or something.
Yeah.
It's not your fault. We were talking for at least probably almost 2 hours now. I'd imagine.
2 hours and 15 minutes, I think.
Well, yeah, but it's a conversation.
Yeah, man, this shit is entertaining for real. What time do you wake up?
I need to start waking up more early. If I can wake up by like 7:20.
Holy shit, bro, you wake up late.
Well,
I wake up at 5:30, bro.
why?
I gotta be in the Western Club at work at 8. So I wake up, shower, shave, get my coffee, get something to eat.
My morning routine is basically just like waking up, and the next thing it's like just racing against the clock. Like it takes me, I can be at work from the point that I wake up and by walking in my classroom, I can be there. Maybe we should fucking say this for that's wild, right? Do you want to
Oh
no,
I was gonna say no. I think we should maybe wrap it up because we still gotta go do that thing. I ran out of water, bro.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say that I can be at work, like everything from the point that I wake up and anything like that.
No, actually, save that for this, so that we can maybe wrap up.
Yeah, I just kind of explain. Yeah, I hear you.
You know where you stop?
Stopped?
I mean, you know where you look at the time?
Yeah. I'll have video evidence.
Man, this fucking hand's so good.
And I actually don't like it, bro. To me, it smells like shit.
Really?
Yeah, I don't like. See, there goes the difference.
Oh yeah, man.
There goes the fucking difference. Yeah, I literally the one that I finished smelled real good.
Well, you know about that whole thing where
It smelled like chocolate and coconut type of, but like real light.
you want to talk about a crazy factor of human existence that's essentially tied to survival is the sense of smell is the most strongly linked to memory out of all of our senses.
Because it reminds you.
Yeah, and you remember, well,
It takes you right there.
last time I ate that berry, I almost died.
Right.
So
Exactly.
whereas now it's like, this reminds me of that one spring break with what's her name?
Yeah. I've had moments where like I had some kind of scent or something like I come across it and it just straight reminds me when I was something that happened to me when I was a kid or
Dude,
like a memory that I hadn't had in like a long time. It's like boom.
I literally had a fart. Like I eaten something the night before and I just farted. And like the particular odor of this flatulence took me back to like a vivid memory, man. Like a very personal and touching memory. I was like, that's disgusting.
Wow. Okay. I don't want to know the story. I just that's fascinating. What I will say is like okay, talking about like farts and stuff. Like yeah, so I've had a similar experience where like I'm like right? And they're like, oh shit, like that reminds me not necessarily of this fart that I did like when I was like in the 8th grade, right? Whatever. It reminds me of my homeboy so and so's fart that he freaking like, you know, like just like kind of just like, you know, kind of hit me with out of nowhere as a prank or something, you know. And I'm like, man, you fart? He's like, yeah. I was like, oh shit, get up. You fucking like walk away, right? He like tags you, right? And then I was like, oh, that smells just like fucking Joey's fart from fucking like when I was like in the 8th grade. Like, what the hell?
Shit.
What's old Joey up to?
Right? Yeah, but then it takes you back to like maybe what you were watching on TV, or maybe like what video game you were playing, or like maybe how like the house was set up, and then remembering like what his parents were like, and like shit like that. It's like, what the hell? Farts, man. I think there's a theme, recurring theme here.
That's fucking funny, bro.
I think we can all agree the first and most fundamental joke in human existence.
Here, here.
Glorious fart.
Mm-hmm. You're just funny, man. I mean, just on a level of a primitive level that is, it just is. It just really is. You know, and there'll be even times like, you know, the kids will be there and you know, like it'll be all quiet and one of the, you know, it's like, but like with their tongue, they just like, you know, do it. And it's like, really like, I'm like, all right. Cut it out.
That's funny.
But yeah,
I'll be honest, I had never thought of it that way. I had never thought of that was one of the first forms of the cause of laughter.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. Babies fart and they laugh just because it's probably just feels funny. It's like,
Yeah.
what's that?
My daughter does that.
You know? Yeah, exactly. And so, and it's probably it's like it is relief. It's first of all, it's the gas that's been pent up, and it's released.
And then when she was a baby, like when she was a baby that she was like 6 months old, she would fart and she would get scared.
Yeah, that happens to my dogs do that too. But the funny thing about the laughter though is like which I was kind of like trying to be a little bit more like philosophical about it. It's like, you know, like this gas that's pent up in our system, right? We fart, we release it, it comes out, and we feel relieved, and it's all so it's not like an
metaphor for humor.
It's not an unpleasurable experience. So basically, our humor raised all that pent up. Yeah.
Well, talking about like the socializing. That's not the right word, but I'll make one up. The aspect of humor that kind of bonds us as a community. I've heard more than a few accounts from like parents where they talk about like their kid peeing on them while they're changing their diaper.
Right.
And like the story tends to repeat when it comes to like the little bastard pissed on me and then he laughed about it. And it's like, but they're telling you and they're laughing about it. Whereas like I've heard the opposite of that story where it's like, little fucker just pissed on me. Like nothing happened, no response. And it's that acknowledgement of like, it's like when somebody drops your shit, like, you know, you have somebody over and they drop your cups, like, dude, I'm fucking sorry about that. You know what I mean? As opposed to like, fuck it. You know what I mean? Just that acknowledgement and that tension of the moment. You know what I mean?
And I guess just things that we find funny, and even like when we're completely alone, right? That we like maybe something will happen to us, or like whatever, that we'll laugh. But actually, I was watching Ellen's stand-up special, Relatable, and dude, she's like, you know, she's telling like a friend or somebody that I want to go and do stand-up again, and the person that she's talking to is like, well, do you think you're relatable anymore? Right. And she says basically like she thinks that she's completely relatable, right? And that's when like her two butlers like walk in and like bring her like breakfast or some shit, right? And it's like that's part of the joke. Like, then she starts talking about like kind of like the trappings or details, right, of her life, or maybe the life of somebody who's like as wealthy as her. And she's, you know, of course she's it's funny, but you know, when you believe she has all this shit that she's fucking talking about, but she's also saying like, you know, like how like, you know, just the concept, I guess, and it's funny. And even though I understand the joke and what she's doing, but I think humor is what it is because it is relatable. Like we can relate to it on some kind of level, and just the relatability of something that's funny. So I don't think like we find things funny when we can't relate to it.
There was a guy that was doing comedy down here for a while. I think probably before you jumped into it, Bobby. And he had these two jokes that just kind of like, I never I never talked to him about it to find out if he did it on purpose, but they lined up perfectly together. And one of them was like, Zelda's a fantasy game because it's about a white dude cutting grass for money. But the joke right after that was, so my maid found my weed in my pants the other day. And it just like the transition from that to that always got like made me fucking giggle because like it is, I think part of it, like people worry about that shit, like the whole like, can you be relatable to your audience and shit? I think if you're painting broad enough or not broad enough, you want to do little details, but let those connect together in such a way that even if somebody's talking about something that you have no firsthand
experience with,
you can still connect that to the greater experience of what is this life.
Yeah, definitely.
Does that make sense, Freddy? You're looking at me. Okay.
No, I'm listening.
Okay. Yeah, man. Like, I mean, I've listened to people make jokes about shit that I have like never fucking, whether it's they're talking about some odd job that they did or talking about like some, fucked up situation that they got themselves into. It's, yeah, man. I mean, the art of storytelling is being able to put somebody into a situation that isn't actually happening to them. So, yeah, we are the modern troubadours, bouncing around through life trying to get a giggle.
That's true.
Sorry, I thought I had a deeper point there, but
you're right, because it's just kind of just a modern version of something that's been happening forever.
But
told in many different ways.
Yep.
True. Well, I mean, that's one of the reasons I find myself very sensitive is not the right word. I find myself reacting almost viscerally when we have these conversations as a society about like how do we break down the stratification of society. I mean, we have a kind of innate classism and an innate kind of structure to like, the middle class, the lower class, the whatever, and all this stuff. But then you can break it down in like this myriad of different ways of like, I mean, the concept of like intersectionality, where it's like, where we all kind of are coming out of a multiple of subgroups that are coming together and meeting in this one individual person that is, you, I, everybody
regardless
else.
If you're an exclusive member of that subgroup.
You're never an exclusive member. That's part of the thing, man. Like,
I see what you mean, though. I see what you mean. Through that intersectionality,
it's like, how do we relate? Motherfucker, we're going through the same damn thing. We're just, at different places on the map.
Hence,
we're all playing. The fart shall bring us together.
Oh my god, that's funny. But
and for some reason, dick jokes, even though only half of us have them.
Yeah.
Even they think they're funny.
Oh man, a good dick joke's a good dick joke.
That'll get you out of any bomb. You just throw in a good dick joke, man. Right back on your side.
I remember Jade was telling me that he doesn't like when comics like make a joke out of like claiming to have a small dick. And that he just doesn't think that it's funny. But then again, he is gay. So, like maybe there's a little bias there, but I don't know. It's just I think a good joke's a good joke, regardless of if it's a trope or something that's been around for a long, long time. It's a good joke's a good joke, and you should be able to. And that's why I think all subjects should be able to be addressed through comedy, even though it might be a sensitive subject or something that sets somebody off. Triggers them because that could contain certain trigger words. Those things should still be on the table because a good joke is a good joke that isn't at the expense of something or malicious in nature. If we talk about this bringing together aspect of comedy, stuff like that, then there might be a pocket or small like a population of people that'll find that funny, but it's not. It's like a good joke's a good joke, and you can tell when someone's being like a dick or coming from a space that is kind of really shitty. And I think that's also why we kind of like why racist humor is so pervasive. Because not so much those are good jokes, right? What I'm saying is like laughing at a joke that might be racist isn't necessarily being like racist and that you're a racist person.
Well, no, here's an idea that kind of comes along with that is the idea of the feint, where it's like you think you know where the punchline's going, but that subversion of expectation at the end where you kind of like, flip it around. I had a joke, somebody's bit in my head at the moment, but it's gone. But that getting that close to the fucking edge, you know what I mean? Right. Where it's like we all kind of have a general idea of what is acceptable on a lot of topics, and there's some that we're still trying to figure out where the fuck that line is, but coming right up to that fucking edge. But the only way you find where that I think it was Patrice O'Neill that was talking about that on an interview where they were like, well, what's the difference between a bad, or no, his point was the difference between a bad joke and a good joke. Like they're both trying to get to the same place. It's just one of them actually managed to do it. So we can't just go after, like, oh, that was too far.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, the only way you find out what's too far is you have to walk over that fucking line.
Well, yeah, exactly. And so, even though I do kind of, want people to respect each other and be open-minded and accepting and not alienate or have these like, kind of these prejudices that sometimes, we like there's the ability, like, like I said, like people like to have a sense of respect and God damn it! I keep on fucking losing the thread of my thoughts. But what I want to say is that we should be able to say whatever we want to say. But if the place where you're coming from will be revealed when you're up there on stage and you're trying to tell jokes. Like your heart is out there. You're revealing yourself of who you are, and and people can tell, the audience can tell when, and this is like a random group of people, unless you have like an audience that's specifically there to see you, which, none of us have at this, that we haven't experienced that, right? But, so that's why our job is it's hard because we got to go and kind of like appeal to a group of people that are like a variety.
But, the good thing about that, or the upside about that, is that that's what makes you, and I mean this in general, that's what makes you a great comic. A great comic, that's what distinguishes them from everybody else. Mm-hmm. A great comic, the way I would describe that person, is somebody that can appeal to each and every audience.
Well, what they've done is they brought people from various backgrounds together to appreciate or to enjoy what they do, because there's something about that perspective that does that. And I do agree with you, but then again, there's like certain people that appeal like to specific demographics, and I wouldn't necessarily say that they're not great comics, but I think the larger ones, the ones that really like reach this kind of status, this legendary, like very kind of rarefied era of comedians, do have sort of like that ability because everybody knows who they are, and some people say like, well, there's a lot, I guess there's a lot of things to it, whether you try to like music that tries to like appeal to everybody, that's not too edgy or like or anything like that, like kind of like sucks, whereas so like comedy that tries to okay, I guess what I'm not disagreeing with you, I guess what I just realized what I meant.
Well, you are, but
no. What I realized, what I mean to say is that if you purposefully try to appeal to everybody, then you're fucked. But if you can be yourself and get all those fucking, then now you're a badass. Hell yeah, fuck yeah.
To use the example of music, man, like if you put an album together that was like, okay, this first song is going to be a rock song, and then this next one's going to be a salsa, and then this one over here, I'm going to do some Mongolian throat singing.
Or if you're just Maroon 5.
Fuck Adam and his nipples. Have you seen that one meme somebody put out where it was what's his name from it was Steve Carell and as his character from The Office, and he's got like all the tattoos on.
yeah.
That was well done.
No,
what I was going to say though was, man, if you instead of trying to cultivate these small little like, well, if I make this joke, these people will laugh, and this joke, these people will laugh. Mm-hmm. I think what you're kind of getting more towards is the higher ideal. You know what I mean? Yeah. Which is kind of what I was saying about the You have to leave those loose ends so that people can connect it to their own existence. Yeah, man, there's a general theme going on in this reality, and if you can tap into that,
right,
then you don't have to necessarily describe everybody's individual experience. You just give them that thing that they can connect to their own individual experience.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I really meant, was just that when the intention is to try to be broad, and because then that's not necessarily, like, I guess, the right approach. It's when you kind of utilize what it is about yourself and really develop a voice. But and comedy is one of those things that's why people are so critical about it, because like they experience humor daily, and they kind of know what they feel is funny, and so they have kind of an idea about what funny is, right? But then but if we're gonna kind of compare art form to art forms, right? It's like, for example, I mean, I love like metal, right? I mean, that's just like when I was a kid, I was like, I mean, I love all types of music, right? And the music that I've been playing or that I've done, I fucking play the banjo, right? So
I've seen you do it.
Yeah, and people are always like, dude, what the hell? It's like one of those like stupid like human tricks that I have, like, and because it's kind of a rare thing for people to actually see somebody do it somewhat proficiently, right? And like, because you've seen people like play acoustic and play the guitar, but you never really seen somebody sit down and like play a banjo, and so that's what when people react to me playing the banjo, it's because they just never saw anybody ever do it, like in that way. But I'm gonna say is, okay, so I love all types of music, but thinking about like how even though I can definitely get down to like really heavy like chuggy riff and something that's badass, like I don't like death metal or black metal, right? Like fucking gore shit. And I can't even though like the elements are kind of like they're pulling from like similar ingredient pile or whatever and stuff, I just don't really dig that stuff. But and then it's very polarizing. I guess I'm talking about polarizing things. So basically now, but are you gonna go and see if a certain band comes in that's of that genre comes into like a city, are we gonna see some people lined up around the corner to come and see them play? And do they have an audience? Have they established themselves, and have they worked really hard to fucking do that? Yeah. And does that appeal to everybody, or are they able to get like big audiences? Then not necessarily. But there's some people that really, really love what they do because it really speaks to something there in them. So maybe the goal as if you're creating an art form, is the measure of success whether it has a wide appeal, not necessarily because you've tried to get there, or is it because somebody really fucking loves what you do? Like, I mean, just imagine, we're there at El Rey, and maybe, we're having a rough time or whatever, and there's a sizable audience, and I'm sure we've all experienced it. I've experienced where it's like, you're not getting a reaction from like a majority of the crowd, but there's like a couple of people that are fucking loving it.
That one sick bastard up front is digging the shit.
Yeah, yeah. And in a way, sometimes you start kind of performing for them, but you're still you get me. And if I made your night, that guy's night, all right. And sometimes you might be confusing it that they're not laughing because you're bombing. Okay, because bombing and bombing gracefully is fun in itself, and it can be entertaining, but the person really truly gets your jokes and the relatability thing, and so did you fail because not everybody in the audience really dug it? I don't know, man. I think I can live with myself if that situation.
Well, I mean, life goes on, but it still doesn't make the bomb feel that less painful. I mean,
there was a great line in I think it was Crashing. The show was Pete Holmes on. Okay,
I haven't seen it.
The new season just came out, and there's a great line in the first episode where he's talking to a club owner, and she goes, "You didn't bomb, but it was weak." And it's basically the line was a strong bomb is better than a weak
a weak fucking is like mediocre, like lukewarm performance
than a weak win. And it was one of those lines that just like, wow. as somebody who's judging your own artwork, that kind of hits you, and you go, fuck the bitches, right?
Yeah, that and kind of articulates something that you kind of like already kind of knew or you felt, but hearing it out loud kind of actually like kind of like puts it like in a sharper perspective. But I think always it's like with any craft and any art form, you just kind of work for improvement. You know, where you just always work on getting better and better and better, even though there's these and that, like dips and plateaus and peaks and valleys and all that shit. And there's my consistency is definitely all over the place.
Well, and on some level, I think some of us are holding on to that idea that maybe we're like, Jackson Pollock in this motherfucker. And it's like we're just throwing paint at the wall, going, "They're gonna love me when I'm dead."
But just personally, like I've had like some like just I guess the self-doubt creeps in and shit, and some nights are you get it's here and there, and you just keep on. You can't really fixate on that. You just keep on working forward, and because it's getting better, and it requires a lot of practice and experiencing those moments.
Yeah.
You look tired, Freddy.
I'm good, man.
Yeah, I know you got to wake up early.
I just I'll tell you off camera.
Just wrestling.
Did you just jerk off a little while? Are you 40% more relaxed right now, or 400 times more relaxed? I don't know.
One jerk, Freddy. One jerk. 2 jerks is too much.
That's all it takes.
Right now, you're 80% relaxed.
That's all it takes, man.
You know what? That's kind of, you don't want to tell someone that when the first couple times they go on stage, but you can definitely go out to perform and be entirely too relaxed.
I think I'm better high strung.
Yeah, a little bit of tension, man. We were talking about Joey Diaz earlier, and like that motherfucker has one of the lines that he has that's always stuck with me is like, I got to be mad before I go on stage. Like he talks about picking fights in the green room before, to start bagging on some motherfucker.
Right,
just to get that aggression level up to then hit the stage with. But yeah, man, you hit the stage with entirely too much fuck it in your system, and that shit that shines through like a beacon.
Well, yeah, and sometimes we have some people have a natural fuck it, and maybe sometimes even somebody who might be like kind of a more of a fucking Joey Diaz definitely has he's edgy, he's got a fucking edge, and he's got a fucking he's hard, so that's why that anger really really helps with his stuff. But I think if you're not necessarily, or maybe you're on the other spectrum, a more kind of like, I'm not gonna say like somebody who's great also, but maybe just isn't like, say like a Brian Regan type or something, but there's still fuck it there though. There's still fuck it there, or like Mike Birbiglia or something,
I think
super nice and wholesome and likable.
Let's say there's a functional fuck it and
a functional fuck it.
Yeah, because if you just go to the point where it's like, I don't care what happens on this fucking stage, like that, it's like, might as well just go up there and stand for a few minutes and be like, how are y'all doing? What you want to talk about?
No, and I was just gonna say, I think for any human being that made that conscious choice of wanting to be a comic, there's the fuck it's already there.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't think there's a comic that doesn't have fuck it.
It's kind of like the first thing that compels you to even get on stage. Fuck it. Fuck it. Let's see how this goes. Fuck it. I like that functional fuck it though. That's something I'm gonna put in my head.
Well, you got to maintain the levels of you can't be. It's like a hobby, man. You can't let the thing take over your life. But then on the other hand, you don't step away from the motivations that you do have. Like if you just go, you know what, man, I'm going to stop chasing my dreams. I'm going to what's this bathing thing? Fuck that. I'm just saying, I've seen comics step on stage, and I know I've experienced it myself, where you get out there and you just go, I don't even care.
Yeah, I know. And sometimes is it a defense mechanism, or is it really like, and I don't know. I mean, sometimes I just like, I'm going to try something new,
Again, that can be useful. I'm just saying, entirely, there's got to be at least some tension there. Like we've talked about this as far as audiences go. There's got to be a tension in that audience that you are there to relieve. Because if you're just going up there and going, it's like we were talking last time, like if we're all on the same page about like there's some tension here, then what you're saying is a relief mechanism. Whereas if they're already, comfortable, they've been sitting there, nice comfortable chair, having some drinks, talking to their friends, and then you come up and start bringing up these fucking like these contentious subjects, whatever it is you're talking about in the form of a joke, you're the asshole bringing the tension now. You're no longer the clown, you're the fucking annoyance.
Right. Yeah, I know what you mean, exactly. And I guess reading the audience and being able to kind of maybe just sort of like, and I do believe like funny is funny, regardless of whether it's a dick joke or a more like, higher concept joke, or just, something from someone's personal life, or if it's a relationship joke or whatever, that there's something, kind of just with that is, we can tell. And is it super definable? No, or can we like really like pinpoint it down? I want there to be a little mysticism and a little like kind of like, vagueness, I think, to the definition of what is funny. But like just people can tell. And so when there's a lot of backlash about like, right now in terms of like political correctness and people like, oh, you can't say that or this or that, or you're punching down or that. It's like, well, like I said, motherfucker, funny is funny. And if someone's like obviously coming from like that spot, then the audience knows, and you're not going to get away with it. They're not going to let you get away with it, and you can't, and you don't, it's like, and so, but if it's even like, oh shit, dude, I can't believe you just said that, but that was funny. And you could tell that it's like, it's not so much not believing what you're saying. It's just knowing that there's something there that's going to hit, but they're still going to forgive you for it.
That's one of the reasons.
I forget this is even the word.
I think that's one of the reasons I was bringing up the idea of the feint earlier, where you go right up to the line and then like you don't pull the punch necessarily, but there's that misdirection right at the end, because you know that anybody listening to you is going to complete that thought to the they're going to go to the horrible place that you didn't go there. So you can see that tension in people where it's like,
where is this going?
It's like, I mean, you can see comics actually do that on stage, where it's like, oh, you sick bastards were thinking that? No. And there's that acknowledgement of I guess it's almost like completed thoughts that we have in your head. Well, if you said this, then this must be where you're headed. And it's like, no, that's the place you wanted to head.
Yeah.
So
a lot of misdirection. Sometimes we got.
It's a complex issue, especially because we do live in this world that has these multivariable. We can talk about money on the level of like greed. We can talk on money on the level of like a useful, functional,
or not having any.
Yeah,
or like spending it on McDonald's.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, fuck, man, are you getting me hungry, bro?
Shit.
I think we should wrap it and go
good.
for that McDonald's run.
Go get some fucking bleached meat. Some fucking bleached meat, please.
A McDonald's run would sound so good right now.
Can I have a double bleach back in?
They have
sauce.
They have the 20
get some extra chlorine.
They have the 20 piece right now, dude, for $9.99.
Yeah, man. Shit.
No, it's not even $9.99. It's $5.
Yeah, $5 for 20 pieces. That's fucking dope. Hey, I mean, I ain't gonna lie. Like, I'll sometimes, when I'm in a certain motivation, I'll go and I'll, maybe get like, some nuggets or whatever, and then I'll start digging in my fridge. I'll bust out like, some tortillas with some, maybe some like kind of lettuce and, maybe put some cheese or just some kind of whatever. And then I'll start like making like these nugget tacos and just like sort of like gourmet that shit up. Like, I mean, I do ridiculous things with my food sometimes. But yeah, it's like, taking it like to like.
How do you think lasagna was made, bro? I mean, you think that recipe was real? That shit was started when somebody was like, let's just put this
together. Layers.
Yeah.
Layers, dog.
Layer this shit up.
Yeah. That's funny. All right, yeah. I gotta actually probably go get. I need to put some clothes in the laundry and shit. I just realized I'm not gonna have socks to wear tomorrow. I'm fucking that's why I didn't bring any. I normally wear socks, guys.
Is that why you had them half off your feet? You wanted to let us know where that smell was coming from.
I'm sorry.
So
I also I showered before I got here, but
before we go, man, you wanna let them know where they can find you? Oh wait, you don't have a page.
I just don't really promote. I mean, I just like to. Fucking lazy. It's not so much being lazy. I don't know. I really don't know why I'm not as self-promoting. And it's I just kind of I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I do have a Facebook page, but that's about it.
Oh well, you don't have to promote if you don't want. I don't want to put.
No. It's not that I don't want to. It's just
Bobby likes to be followed in person, not in social.
What is, yeah, basically. But what's great is just, I mean, we do have a community down here, and of people who regularly go out and attempt and perform, and that do stand up, and it's nice to be part of it down here, even though that it's there. And so basically, anytime there's an open mic, I try to make it. Especially the comedy one at El Rey's is always it's very important, because it's how long it's been running. That's specifically geared toward comedy. You don't have to go and compete. Not so much compete, but what I'm saying is have to deal with people like, okay, so this dude's going to do some really heartfelt poetry, or whatever, that's kind of that's going to set a certain mood, and then this person will go up there and do a couple of cover songs of something, or this person's going to sing whatever, or this dude's going to do shitty fucking poetry, this person's going to sing a fucking shitty song or whatever, and then you got to deal with this kind of variety thing. It's nice that it gives us the opportunity to do strictly a comedy thing, and we get to go and practice and do it, and then the Wednesdays. So I guess that's probably much where I could be found, probably trying to fucking do the open mic at El Rey, and then the Wednesday nights there. And I am hopefully going to start performing in a musical capacity again. I love playing the banjo and writing songs, but also, try to get together with a couple of guys and see if we can kind of get something going, and hopefully keep you guys posted on that. But other than that, yeah, man, I need to establish a more online presence for myself, just to be able to communicate and connect with people. And I haven't done that yet.
Awesome.
As has been a recurring theme on the last few episodes, man. You just have to have some place where people can know that you do things.
Right.
Yeah. And you don't want them on your fucking Facebook feed.
Yeah, and that's true. And I think I am a very self-critical person, very self-conscious, but also kind of self-aware, and just a scared little bitch, to where I don't really, and maybe it's just I don't really believe in myself too much to the capacity that I should, and that's something that I really need to be able to work on, and that'll probably be for maybe another episode. Because we can.
Well, look, man, I'll say this, man, and you've been on enough shows at this point, man. Your face has been on enough flyers at this point that if you had all of them in one place and you actually just looked at them and went, "Oh, I've done all that." Yeah. Sometimes it's not for the audience. Sometimes it's for yourself, man. You just look at it and go, "Oh shit, I've actually done things.
Yeah,
I'm not a lazy piece of shit."
You know what? I like that. I gotta really fucking think about that shit now, man. Fuck.
Sparked a fire under Bobby's ass.
Well, I just
don't fart.
I don't know. You know what?
Now that was the second joke.
let's just call it right there, right? Because we can just keep on going down and down. But I think that's a good plot. Just you guys.
And as we all know, we don't want them on your Snapchat, because that's where the dirty things are.
All right. Well, I'm done promoting myself. I'll let you guys fucking go ahead and take over at this point.
And we're definitely going to make you play the banjo next time we have you.
So a little intro music. Yeah.
Folks, you can find me at hatfieldstandup@gmail.com, as well as Hatfield Stand Up on Facebook and Twitter.
You can find me at Freddy G across the board on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
You can find past and future episodes of the Bouncing Brains podcast at shoutengine.com/Bouncing Brains. You can find us on YouTube under Bouncing Brains. You can find us on Facebook under Bouncing Brains Podcast. We got a group on there. You can get in there and discuss how much you fucking love the shine off of Freddy's head or just whatever. This beautiful green blue on the back wall. Whatever y'all want to talk about, y'all can get in touch with us. You can also reach out to us at bouncingbrainspodcast@gmail.com. We're on Stitcher. We're on some other stuff, Google Music, Play, Bizarre Emporium, whatever the fuck they're calling it now. Nod to the Google overlords, but fuck them in the long run. Hi, Google. Yeah, that's it. Y'all have a good time. Listen, like, share, subscribe. Peace.